This program is brought to you by cable franchise fees and generous donations from viewers like you.
Welcome to the Amherst Planning Board meeting of May 5th, 2021, and happy Cinco de Mayo to you all. Our meetings are hitting some of the more festive holidays, as we also met on St. Patrick's Day this year. So 4th of July is on a Sunday, so we won't have to worry about that one. Based on Governor Baker's executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 30A, Section 20, and signed Thursday, March 12th, 2020. The Planning Board meeting is being held virtually using the Zoom platform. My name is Jack Jemsik, and as chair of the Amherst Planning Board, I'm calling this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. This meeting is being recorded and is available via Amherst Media live stream. Minutes are being taken. Board members, I will take a roll call when I call your name, unmute yourself, answer affirmatively, and then place yourselves back on mute. Maria Chow?
Here.
Tom Long?
Here.
Andrew McDougall?
Present.
Doug Marshall?
Present.
Janet McGowan?
Here.
Johanna Newman?
Here.
And myself. So board members, if technical issues arise, please let Pam know. If technical difficulties occur, we may need to pause temporarily to fix the problem and then continue the meeting. Discussion may be suspended while the technical issues are addressed, and the minutes will note if this happened. Please use the raise hand function to ask a question or make a comment. I will see your raised hand and call on you to speak. After speaking, remember to remute yourself. Opportunity for public comment will be provided during the general public comment period and reserved for comments regarding items that are not on tonight's agenda. Public comment may also be heard at other appropriate times during the meeting. Please be aware the board will not respond to comments during the general public comment period. If you wish to make a comment, join the meeting via the Zoom teleconferencing link that is shown. And the link is also listed on the meeting agenda posted on the town website via the calendar listing for this meeting, or you can go to the planning board webpage and click on the most recent agenda, which lists the Zoom link at the top of the page. Please indicate you wish to make a comment by clicking the raise hand button when public comment is solicited. If you have joined the Zoom meeting using a telephone, please indicate you wish to make a comment by pressing *9 on your telephone. When called on, please identify yourself by stating your full name and address and put yourself back into mute when finished speaking. Residents can express their views up to 3 minutes and at the discretion of the planning board chair. If a speaker does not comply with these guidelines or exceeds their allotted time, their participation will be disconnected from the meeting. I'd like to note that I had some correspondence with the town regarding the format of our Zoom meetings and the ability of the attendees to view each other, which was a topic of discussion and some editorials, last year. And I was able to confirm that the town of Amherst IT department has set the current Zoom settings for security purposes and to essentially eliminate the possibility of Zoom bombing of inappropriate images by an attendee without the need for additional monitoring by Amherst staff. So that was just a little research that was made. So with that, we can review the minutes of April 7th. Is that correct, Pam?
Yes.
Okay. So do we have any comment amongst the board on these minutes? I see none. Any motion to approve?
So move.
Okay, Janet, and a second.
One second.
Andrew. All right, any further discussion? All right, I see none. So I'll do a roll call here. Maria, please.
Approve.
Andrew.
Approve.
Doug.
Aye.
Tom.
Approve.
Janet.
Aye.
Johanna.
Aye.
And myself is yes. So that's unanimous approval of these minutes. And we will make a minor modification to the agenda and present item A under old business as the first item of business in this meeting. Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped the gun. Public comment period. And give that a minute. I apologize. So I see one hand raised. Ian Camara, state your name and address.
Hi, Ian. Can you unmute yourself?
I'm actually not Ian. I'm at Ian's house. This is Jerry Weiss
Oh, okay.
from Middle Street in Amherst. I'd just like to speak to my ongoing disappointment that the planning board will likely give another special permit to an archipelago building project that won't result in a single affordable unit downtown. I may be speaking too soon, as archipelago directors could voluntarily offer affordable units and take the tax credit offered. This is especially distressing since a member of the planning department has admitted in public that the interpretation of Article 15 used for the past 12 years was a misinterpretation that has cost the town dozens of affordable units in the 3 previous archipelago buildings and likely in this one as well.
Hey, Jerry, I'm just saying this is on the docket, and the public comment is for.
Well, I'm one sentence from not on the docket. I'm leading up to a misinterpretation that the planning department has an excellent fix for. I'm urging the planning department and the town council to pass a moratorium on new permits before another building project like this comes along under this grievous misinterpretation. And I realize that must be repeated over and over until a new law is passed. Adding to the problem are the current woeful design standards downtown, also being reviewed with excellent suggestions for improvement. It boggles my mind that a permit moratorium is not being supported by the entire planning board and town council. All of the planning department's suggestions would result in a far more successful downtown, as new buildings would be more attractive and the diversity of inhabitants, now not present, would be a boon for businesses, as well as advancing equity in our town. Thank you.
Okay, I see no other further public comment, and so we're going to move the old business item SPR 2020-07 Kendrick Park Playground, presentations of signage information regarding conditions 4 and 6 of the site plan review decision, properties map 11C-244 in the RG zoning district. And Chris, I assume you're letting Nate run with this, right? Okay.
Yes,
Nate,
please.
please.
Yeah, thanks everyone for letting me present the Kendrick Park signs. I'm going to share my screen. Kyle and Dave, thanks for your patience. The the design review board looked at the sign yesterday and they said it was fantastic. No. They had a few comments, but overall they did like it. So the just to preview again, this is the design for the play area in Kendrick Park. The yellow area is the playground with equipment, and then there's sitting areas and a walking path. This, north is is this way to the right. Here's East Pleasant Street. There's a new paved walkway. I call it like an east-west walkway. The major walkway into the play area, and there's a planting area, and that's the location of the welcome sign. So the idea is that there's just one sign for this for the play area. Sorry about the different page sizes. So originally when we presented this, with the bid documents, the idea was to have granite posts and a sign that was less than 12 square feet, so it wouldn't trigger a special permit, and it would have something on the front and something on the back. And staff thought it would be worthwhile to try to integrate a sign design into the wayfinding system, which is going through review right now. And so working with a sign designer, we've this is the proposed sign. So it has the same color and font and, kind of stylistically the same as the Wayfinding System, still using an 8x8 granite post. There's T brackets mounted into the granite. You can see here the fasteners would be visible, so that two sign fabricators thought they could be, they could become a decorative element. They could be painted, or they could be a different material. The sign itself is 5 feet long, a little over 2 feet high. The proportion works nicely here. There's a little bit of spacing between the post and the sign, and it's a 2-sided sign. So the front of the sign has "Welcome to Kendrick Park." We have the new town logo. The sponsors for the playground need to be noted. The town of Amherst, the Park Grant Program, and Community Preservation Act funds. And just to scroll down quickly, here's the wayfinding sign. So the font is the same, and a lot of the proportions are the same. The posts are different. It's for the recreation area, not for a street side sign, but it really does try to use this template as the basis for design for the sign. The back panel, so it's 2 panels mounted to brackets, and so the idea for that is a panel could be removed if needed, if it's vandalized or needs to be fixed, as opposed to having the original idea showed basically a sign that was integral to the brackets. And so essentially the brackets and the panels were all one piece, and if it was damaged, the whole thing would need to be replaced. And so with this type of sign, you can take one panel off. You could even replace a bracket individually. Anyways, on the back side of the sign, it would just have the logos. We're required to have the funding logos for the park grant program, and if there's anything the CPA committee would like. And the idea is to have 12 by 18 areas where the rules and regulations for the park and safety protocols for the playground could be listed on a separate vinyl sign that would be surface mounted to the panel. Another panel could be a map of downtown showing parking, restrooms, and other other shops. So it helps orient you if someone's here, where they can go to get. We can have restaurants and different establishments listed. In the third panel, we've talked about having an environmental education component to the park. We have some rain gardens and on-site stormwater management. So there could be that. I know previously at the planning board, there was a discussion, and the design review board liked the idea of having kind of a community bulletin board. So where someone could post other things, or maybe it would be like a monthly rotation that the town, the bid, and the chamber could actually have an area where events are posted. And so there's some concern about putting it on a sign like this, because then anyone might start posting anything on the sign. And so one of the design review board recommendations was to actually have a separate wooden post with a 12 by 18 board that would accommodate this kind of rotational event posting. So it wouldn't be on this welcome sign necessarily, but there could be a separate standalone post. And so that's something staff is considering, but it's a nice idea, because otherwise there's no other places in Kendrick Park to there aren't any kiosks right now to post information about community events or what's happening downtown. In terms of comments from the design review board, they in general they thought the design was an improvement. They had suggestions about possibly raising the top of the sign to be level with the granite post. So instead of having a 3-inch step down, it's a level across, and that would mimic the design of the wayfinding signs. The Kendrick Park is title case, so it's a capital letter and then lowercase. And on the wayfinding sign, it's all capital for Amherst. And they thought that was fine, as long as we're consistent with the application of typeface and font. So if for the thought could be this sign could be a model for other recreation areas, and then for instance at Groff Park, it would follow the same pattern where Groff Park wouldn't be fully capitalized; it would follow this type of font pattern. And they said also just make sure we're consistent with our spacing, our lettering, and overall kind of aesthetic. And let's see, what else did their memo say? The lettering is the same. And then, right, they would prefer to have the logos on the back of the sign. So, you know, the funders haven't really indicated that, but, you know, we're acknowledging them here and it works, but it'd be, you know, we thought in terms of the aesthetic of the sign, having the funders also have a, you know, a visual logo or symbol, and it, you know, it may not work with this design. So, you know, we're going to have a space for them on the back. And I think that's probably it for the DRB comments. Tom was there if he wanted to report anything that I've missed, but you can also accept comments from the board.
Yeah, I think they were also emailed around today, so they're posted as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, you got it, Nate, you covered it.
Tom, I didn't get a chance to look at those comments, so if there's anything that deviates at all, you're welcome to.
Yeah, no, I think Nate covered pretty much all of it, and then some. So yeah, I mean, there was a lot of discussion. The notion that I was responding to Andrew's comment from the previous time we saw this sign, where Andrew preferred the kiosk-based sign for Kendrick Park because it would allow more community engagement and postings and, you know, events and things like that. So that's where that comment came for the backside. And so there's just a negotiation about whether that information belongs on this sign or whether there's another dedicated location for that. But other than that, I think all of the other comments were covered here.
Great. So the wayfinding sign, that concept
Mhm.
is somewhat new, and I'm wondering if Chris or Nate can say to what extent we are, you know, in this conversion process for this signage in town.
Sure. So, you know, here's, you know, the wayfinding system really is, you know, kind of, you know, there's a hierarchy of signs, right? So there's, you know, welcome signs, which you see here, a larger sign that would help direct vehicular traffic, you know, and pedestrians, but really it's helping, you know, that's the first level to help people, you know, show them where the town center is or really welcome them to Amherst. And then there's a series of other, you know, there's been pedestrian kiosks and other wayfinding signs. You know, this is another example of a directional post that has been presented to town, I believe to the town council, the community resource committee. Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, but, you know, again, using the same design template, color scheme, font, and everything to help direct people more specifically to, you know, to certain locations, institutions, you know, parking and area amenities. So it is relatively new. I think, you know, the town's been working on it for a number of years. We had a technical assistance grant a few years ago to help with kind of wayfinding and branding. And, you know, we see it as a way to simplify and then also streamline, you know, a messaging for visitors, you know, how to navigate Amherst and find places.
So I just wanted to add that most of these signs are in the public way. And so the jurisdiction is with the design review board and the town council, and the planning board doesn't necessarily have a role with the public way because it's not covered by zoning. There was one location that is at the corner of Triangle Street and Main Street, and it's on the Emily Dickinson property. And so Amherst College and the Emily Dickinson Museum have given the town permission to put one of these signs in that location in place of the sign that Emily Dickinson Museum has there. We're going to add a panel that talks about the Emily Dickinson Museum. And that sign, it's on private property, but it had to go through the Zoning Board of Appeals because it's oversized. I think actually all of these signs are oversized. And if they were on private property, they would be limited to 4 feet, square feet, unless they got a special permit from the ZBA. But since they're in the public way, they're not limited as far as the size of the sign. So I think that's about all I have to say. But we're going to try to install these signs probably starting this summer. Ben Breger in the office has been working very closely with the sign designer, and this is kind of the pattern of signs that we're going to hope to have throughout town, and you'll be seeing these in several locations.
Thank you, Chris. Doug?
Yeah, Nate, did I miss showing us where the exact locations of these are?
So the wayfinding or the Kendrick Park sign?
Both.
So that, if we're discussing a Kendrick Park sign, there's really, this sign, there's only one location, only one sign for Kendrick Park. If we zoom up a page, in the park, there's the east-west walkway, and there's a planting area right here. If you're approaching from East Pleasant Street, walking west, the sign will be right here before you kind of enter the playground area in the play area. So that's the location of the Kendrick Park sign.
And then the wayfinding?
The other signs are going to be located in at least 4 locations. There's one that's going to be down along Route 9 coming up from University Drive, somewhere along there. We're working with the state to figure out exactly where that can go. There's one at the Amity Street and University Drive intersection where the, what is it? The market, I forget the name of that New Market, yeah. New Market Center, at that location, there's a sign. It's going to have 2 panels pointing in 2 different directions. So people coming to that part of town can be directed into the town center. There's one that's going to be probably on the south side of the town common, as it is adjacent to College Street. And it's either at the southwest corner or the southeast corner of that larger portion of the town common. And we may try to work with the railroad company to get a sign up on the railroad trestle as people come up College Street. And then we have the sign at the Emily Dickinson Museum at the corner of Main Street and Triangle. In addition to that, I think we have 11 or 12 of those post signs that Nate showed to direct people to various locations throughout town. So those are going to be really primarily located in the downtown area, from the northern part of Kendrick Park down to the intersection of College Street and South Pleasant. And in addition to our wayfinding signs, Amherst College is also embarked on a sign program. So they're coordinating with us about locations, and we're going to try to keep the sign clutter down, but also make sure that people know how to get around and how to get to the places that they want to go to. So I think that about covers it. There are 2 other types of signs or 3 actually, that we may be doing eventually. One is an arrival kiosk, and we would have at least 1 arrival kiosk at the Boltwood garage, and it's kind of a tall version of the sign that Nate showed you, but it would have a map on it that would show people how to get to various places. Then there would be some smaller kiosks scattered around town. We don't have locations for those yet, but those would also have maps and locations to direct people. And then we may have interpretive signs, which would be a slanted panel on a footing that would tell people about a certain site. It might tell people about the town hall or Grace Church, or we haven't really determined exactly which locations those would be located at. And then, I might as well tell you about the other type of sign. We have a Writer's Walk sign program that was recently approved by the Historical Commission. And I think those signs are also in the town right of way, which is why they didn't come to the planning board. But those should be being installed over the summer. And those are similar in style to the signs that we're showing you here tonight. So we're trying to make them all coordinated as much as possible.
Okay, so given the status of the rollout, which is mostly this summer, do you want comments on the graphics of the signs?
Well, we're here for the comments on the Kendrick Park sign, so that if you have comments on those, that'd be.
We probably don't want comments on the graphics of the wayfinding sign in general, because they've already been approved by the DRB and the town council. But if you had comments about the Kendrick Park sign, that's what we're here to talk about.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Janet, please.
I have a quick comment, which when I was reading the thanks to the town of Amherst and the park program and the CPAC money, I immediately thought that we should be thanking Mr. Kendrick. And then, but then I realized like, oh, this is really for the playground. And so I wonder if the sign should say Kendrick Park Playground and showed that the money went that. I just sort of felt like immediately when I read Kendrick Park, I thought we should acknowledge Mr. Kendrick who provided the whole park. So that's just, you know, I don't know if you want to add the word playground or add Mr. Kendrick somewhere, but that was just my reaction.
Thank you, Janet. Any other comment from the board? I see none, and we can open up to the public. And I don't see any public comment, so any further discussion? Andrew?
Hey, I was just going to say, I think Janet's suggestion was a really good one in terms of the recognition. Could be a nice touch.
So would you prefer, you know, recognition for the Kendrick family, or say have this say Kendrick Park Playground or Kendrick Park Play Area? Is there?
Personally, I think the family, I don't know how you would be able to fit more words on here without really ruining the effect of the sign.
Right. Yeah, no, I think, yeah, that acknowledgement could be considered and worked into the text. Yeah, at least acknowledgement of the thinking of the family and the gift they left.
Thank you, Andrew. Would anyone like to make a motion for approving this with any conditions, perhaps? Joanna?
I'll move to approve the sign as is.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second, but just to clarify, would this as is or with the recommendations that were recommended by the design review board?
Let's do it. Well, let's see. So the recommendations by the design review board were to nudge up the sign a little bit. And then our recommendation was consider acknowledging the family. I guess I'm open to either of those. I don't, what is staff, what do you need from us? Like, is that in terms of a motion?
Yeah, I think that if you think that the sign should be moved up to be flush with the top of the posts, you should say that. And if you think that it should acknowledge the Kendrick family's gift, you should say that.
All right, Johanna, you want to revise your motion with that?
I'm going to rescind my motion and see if anybody else is ready to make a motion on this.
Okay.
May I offer my own opinion?
Yes.
I do not agree with the design review board that the top of the sign should be flush with the top of the granite posts. I think that the granite posts really stand out here as kind of a monumental aspect of this sign, and they really stand out more without the sign being flush with the top. That's my personal opinion, but I think it's really nicely designed the way it is. So I'm just offering that for what it's worth.
Okay, sounds like we need to have a little bit of discussion on the two proposed modifications. Anyone? And Andrew.
I would just say, like, I actually agree with Chris's opinion on that, but I also would rather defer to the design reviews board opinion on this. So I'd be comfortable going with their recommendation, just given their efforts to work on the consistency. So I would be comfortable with their position.
I mean, the design review board also, discussed this. So it was a suggestion. I don't know how strongly they're recommending it.
Yeah, I mean, I would confirm that it was a recommendation from, I believe it was from one person on the review board, and then it was briefly discussed. And I don't think there was a universal consensus. And so we were putting it forward as a suggestion and something that might want to be looked at. I don't think it was a recommendation that this sign will perform better or look better if it were in that condition. I think we haven't seen it, so we were just hoping that the designers would look at it and see how they reacted to it. So that would be the recommendation, would be to study it as opposed to necessarily do it.
Okay, and then and with regard to the recognition of the family, would that be on the front side or on the back side? What were the thoughts on that, Janet?
So I would just be happy to, I don't feel like, I don't want to put so many cooks in the brew on this sign. And so I think maybe we can just send these ideas to whoever the decider is or the designer is, saying, you know, several planning board members felt like the Kendrick family should always be acknowledged, or it should be acknowledged. And, you know, other people felt this way, that the sign post was higher, you know, the granite posts were, you know, so just, I don't want to, it just seems like I don't really have a, you know, I want to defer to the people who have spent the most time with it, but maybe just offer some of our suggestions without it like a vote and having us discuss and kind of, you know, spending so much time on this. So can we just do suggestions and have them passed along? Do we need to vote on what we really think as a group? I guess that's my question.
You need to vote to approve the sign,
Okay.
and then you could offer suggestions going along with that.
And to consider the suggestions.
I think I'm going to move, you know, as chair with regard to the proposal as presented by Nate. And is there a second?
Second.
All right, Janet. Any discussion? I see none, so we can do roll call. Maria? Andrew?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Great.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Right.
Nate.
Thank you so much, Nate, for that presentation. Chris? And I'm going to get the preamble here together for the next item, which will be a joint, wait a minute, joint public hearing?
It's just joint because it's the site plan review and the special permit. And
Oh, okay, okay.
May
all
I,
right.
may I give a little introduction here?
Sure, sure.
Okay, so the applicants came to us with an application for a site plan review for this building. And as we looked at their application, we became aware that they needed dimensional modifications for certain things. At first, we thought they needed a dimensional modification for the side setback on the north side and the side setback on the east side, and that they also needed a dimensional modification for the height. When we looked at it more carefully, we realized that the side setback for the east side is really not something that's available to them at this time. The bylaw has been rewritten in that aspect since 1 East Pleasant Street was designed and approved. So what the applicant is going to do, and hasn't done yet, but I expect, you know, in the next day or two, is going to submit an application for to have the side setback on the east side, which is supposed to be 20 feet because it's adjacent to a residential zoning district, reduced to 5 feet. The residential zoning district in this case is the cemetery. What they're going to do is be asking for a special permit under section 9.22 of the zoning bylaw. There's an existing building on the site, which is very close to the cemetery. I think it's within 5 feet of the cemetery. So it does not conform to that side setback requirement. So the building commissioner suggested to the applicant that they could apply for this special permit under section 9.22 to reconstruct essentially an existing non-conforming building And then the planning board will need to make a finding that what is being proposed is not more detrimental. I forget the exact language, but once we do receive the application, we'll do an addition to your development application report and explain this a little bit more and explain to you what finding you need to make. But those are the 3 special permits that are needed. A special permit for modification of the north setback, which is supposed to be 10 feet and it's being proposed to be 5 feet. A modification of the height requirement. The height is supposed to be 55 feet and the applicants are asking for 56 feet 9 inches. And then the third thing, which isn't a dimensional modification, it's a nonconformity that they're asking to be recognized. And that would be a reduction of the setback from 20 feet to 5 feet. So I just wanted to put those things into play. And I think that Jack could open up the public hearing for the, oh, and then there's another part to this, which is that the property immediately to the north of where the building is going to go is a separate property, and that's going to be used as a staging area for construction of the proposed building. And the applicant has had a conversation with the building commissioner about the wisdom of separating out these 2 parcels and these 2 projects. So the applicant has also submitted a site plan review application for use of that adjacent parcel for a construction, staging, and access area. So as he goes through his application presentation, he can explain that to you. But so you're looking at 2 site plan review applications, one for the building site, one for the staging area, and a special permit application that you have right now for side setback on the north side and height. And as I said, in a day or 2, we'll be receiving another special permit application, which you can consider at a future time for the nonconformity issue on the east side. So just wanted to kind of put all that in place. I think we wrote about this in the development application report, but it's a little complicated. So I just wanted to share those facts and those thoughts with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. So with that, I will do the preamble for this. And again, it's 7:08. There's a schedule for 6:35, so we're good there. So in accordance with the provisions of MGL Chapter 40A, this joint public hearing has been duly advertised and notice thereof has been posted. It is being held for the purpose of providing the opportunity for interested citizens to be heard regarding SPR 2021-07 and SPP 2021-02, Archipelago Investments LLC, 11 East Pleasant Street. They request a site plan review approval for construction of a mixed-use building containing dwelling units in combination with a ground floor retail commercial space, including approximately 1,300 square feet of retail space, lobby, leasing, fitness, trash area, mechanical space, elevator, parking, and 55 apartments under section 3.325 of the zoning bylaw. And they are also requesting a special permit, as Chris discussed, to modify dimensional requirements for height, side, and rear setback under footnote A of table 3, section 6 of the zoning bylaw. And this is map 11C, parcels 276, 277, 309, and 310 of the BG zoning district. And again, Chris just mentioned some of the nuances of the special permit for this. So are there any board member disclosures? Chris, your hand is up.
Yeah, Jack, you can go ahead and open the public hearing for the public hearing for the 640 public hearing, which is the site plan review for the adjacent
do that at
lot.
the same
You can
time?
do that at the same time and then just lump them all together. Eventually they'll
good.
have to be closed separately, but it'd be a good idea if you just put them all together for now.
All righty. So that one is
think it's 2021-09, right?
09. Oops. Okay.
Might be on the
See.
back of the sheet that you have.
Sorry. There it is. I got it. All right. And then in addition, we have this public hearing for SPR 2021-09, Archipelago Investments LLC, 15 East Pleasant Street, requesting a site plan review approval under section 5.00 of the zoning bylaw for an accessory and incidental use to a permitted principal use on an adjacent lot for construction, staging, and management of 11 East Pleasant Street project post-construction. The site will be stabilized with asphalt surface and fenced. And this is map 11C parcel 275, and it's in the BG zoning district. Again, lumping these two together on any board member disclosures. And I see none. And the applicant is welcome to present your proposal. And we have Kyle Wilson and David Williams.
Thank you very much. Kyle Wilson from Archipelago Investments. Dave Williams is here as well. Mark Bobrowski, our attorney, is called in on one of the call-in numbers. If I could, can I get control of somehow the screen here?
You should be able to, Kyle, because you're a panelist.
Okay, thank you.
And Kyle, I just looked to see if there was a way to move that phone number into panelist, and I don't see it. So you have to let me know if you want him.
Okay, if Mark, I believe he's a 617 number, so I'll have him speak up if need be. Let me share my screen here. Well, before I do, we're here to talk about our 11 East Pleasant project and adjacent 15 East Pleasant. As we'll see on the survey and the civil and the site and everything, it is immediately north of our 1 East Pleasant project in downtown. It is stretches from Pleasant Street back to the cemetery, and the pub property reaches up to Prey Street. So it's obviously a very important parcel in town, as any of our limited BG district parcels are. So it's a piece of land that is very important to the future of Amherst. What we put together is a couple quick slides just as an intro, and then I will get into the documents that we have submitted and forwarded. Please hold a second. I'm being asked to. Let's see. I'm not able to share here.
Pam has all the documents. She can show them.
I don't have an introductory one though. Kyle, do you think it's a problem on your end?
It could be. Let me, please hold one. Can you hold 1 second, please?
Mm-hmm.
See me?
I can see your screen. Beautiful mountain scene.
Yeah.
That's okay. So here we are. Hold on a second here. Let's scroll to the top. So let me reduce this. So there's just 9 slides, so it's very quick. And it's the context within which we are doing the projects we're doing in Amherst, and within which housing in Amherst will be affected. So this is from the US Census 2020. It came out a couple weeks ago. It shows that Massachusetts is growing. Added almost 500,000 new Massachusetts residents in between 2010 and 2020. to just over 7 million. The growth rate of Massachusetts at 7.4 is far and away the largest growth rate in all of New England, and is close to states like Virginia. You can see that Massachusetts is, of all 50 states, #1 in education, #1 in innovation, and #1 in life science. So the growth that we've experienced in the past 10 years is based on being #1 in education, innovation, and life science, and especially following the last 15 months, we obviously expect that to continue going forward. With that, Massachusetts has a housing crisis, and over the past 30 years, housing production has been cut in half across the Commonwealth. So that 900,000 units were built between 1960 and 1990, and under 435,000 were built between 1990 and 2017. So as a result, Massachusetts home prices have grown faster than any other state in the country. And you can imagine what it's done with rents. So earlier this year, the legislature passed a new economic development law that is targeted at housing production, and housing production lying behind the housing crisis that Massachusetts currently finds itself in. This housing choice initiative, as the housing portion of the bill was known as, had broad support across the political spectrum. The Citizens Housing and Planning Association was one of the big supporters of this because people across the state understand that housing production is the #1 tool to use to combat the housing crisis that we have. So Rachel Heller, the CEO of CHAPA, said more homes in town centers and walkable locations are critical to grow our economy, preserve our environment, promote public health, and meet the needs of our residents across income levels. Appreciate the initiative shows real support for communities to create opportunities for much needed housing production. We've seen this in Amherst, obviously. 2015 housing market study that came out analyzed where we are in Amherst, what the opportunities are to catch up with the lack of production that we've seen. And the number one recommendation was unlock multifamily development. Obviously, the consultants were well aware of our zoning bylaw, were well aware of how much land was given over to single family homes and how little land was allowed for multifamily. So also a housing study that was a forum that was done more recently in 2019 here in Amherst about opportunities for growth and affordable housing in Amherst. 2 quotes from that presentation. This town suffers from a severe housing shortage and high land prices, restrictive zoning, unpredictable, often lengthy permit process, and neighborhood opposition to new multifamily development makes it very hard to build the housing that we need. This map is the town of Amherst zoning bylaw. So on the left is the bylaw per the website. In the middle, we have highlighted in red all of the land that is single family residential use by right. We've also in gray shown institutional or non-residential land, so land that is unable to be built with any multifamily. And as you can see from this, 97% of the land is beyond that is taken up, is either single family, which is by far the most exclusive and land intense type of development that you can do, or institutional or non-residential, where we are not going to see any housing growth for the future. So you can see that there are very few areas in the town of Amherst that are forced to do all of the housing growth work that Amherst needs going forward. As of today, 53% of the housing in Amherst is already rental. Demand continues to increase. And the question that we need to understand and be prepared for is, where will renters live in 2025? Because they're going to live somewhere. These are the projects that we have been a part of here in Amherst. Boltwood Place in 2012, Kendrick Place in 2015, Olympia Place in 2016, and 1 East Pleasant in 2018 Our Spring Streets project is in construction. And these projects are all LEED Gold. They've all met those environmental objectives and been certified. And these projects together pay over $1 million annually in Amherst property taxes. That's every year, forever. We've begun our own property management company, Amherst Innovative Living, that started in late 2017. We have a wonderful partner in that in Alex Lugera Sierra, who has done an amazing job building that company. All of our projects have social media. All of our projects are available for folks to see how we handle that, how we manage the properties. And in 2019, Alex, not Dave or I, Alex was awarded the Leader in Innovation Award by the Chamber of Commerce for the work that she had done with our company, Amherst Innovative Living, providing the property management for these projects. And the last slide is from 3 days ago. From the horror of 2020, from the extremely difficult time in November and January, and thank God for Georgia, we are in a situation, we've been whipsawed from that to this. And what this is GDP growth that is projected to be as high as the height of the post-World War II economic boom. So we're in a situation now where the strains that are currently being felt in Amherst housing promise to continue and become potentially more so. So that is the initial intro. And from there, I wanted to jump directly into the project. Here is the site survey done by Harold Eaton Associates. As you can see, our One East Pleasant project is here. North is to the left. East Pleasant is on the bottom here. Prey Street is here. And the site has a very unique shape. It is made up of 5 parcels. Those, as I mentioned, those 5 parcels have been in the Summerlin family for since the 60s. And we are developing 4 of those parcels, the 4 southernmost parcels, these over here, as Lot 1. And Lot 2 is for the construction staging and for future use. So these 4 parcels here consist of the Summerlin building and the Piper building. This is the pub building. There's an easement that connects all of these parcels. And at one point in the past, the bank property was also a part of this. So when it was split off, there were access to Prey Street and Pleasant Street were preserved. And this easement here serves all of the parcels. So it serves this one, it serves this one, it serves this one, it serves the bank. So the intent is to obviously keep that open to serve the bank as much as we can, and look to redevelop this portion of the site and preserve this portion. This is the landscape plan for 11 East Pleasant. This is showing the footprint of the building and the approach to the property. As I mentioned, to start, this site has frontage on East Pleasant Street and goes all the way back to the cemetery. Currently, the Piper building resides in this location, and the intent of the design of the building is to allow for a view, which you'll see in some renderings a little later on, from the south end of Kendrick Park, from this intersection through the site back to the cemetery. It's currently blocked by the Piper building. The intent is to create a little more space, open that up, and be in a position where the view through 1 East Pleasant and 11 East Pleasant is available on the south side. On the street side, we have a retail that faces the street. We have a residential lobby with the stair and elevator that go up, which I'll get into in the architecturals. We've got a leasing area and a fitness area. And then this is drive under parking, which is very similar to the drive under parking on the building next door at 1 East Pleasant. So this drive aisle, this drive aisle would come in over the easement. Vehicles would turn in and come in here to access the parking that's covered and enclosed. This is a trash room. And this landscaped area along the south is planted with mature columnar Armstrong maples, which build a sense of scale looking back towards the cemetery. The civil plans are produced by SVE. I won't bore you with too much of it, but you know, this is the existing conditions plan, which shows the parking out front, which shows the easement, which shows the parking for the bank, the property line as it zigs and zags up to Prey Street, and the existing building, which is almost on the property line on the back on the cemetery, and zigs and zags itself on the east property line. This is our site plan, which I think will be a little easier to review architecturally. This is our grading plan, which is one of the more difficult things to reconcile here for us on the design side and for the design team. We have an existing building here where we can't change the grade here. We have an existing condition on the street, we can't change the grade, and an existing condition along the entire north side, which we can't change the grade. So the management of the surface stormwater on this site was tricky to execute. I think we've been able to come up with something that works very well. It allows for all the grades to work, the water to flow where it needs to flow, and then allows for some pedestrian access here through this opening in the building, which is open to the public. We can come back to the utility plan a little bit. This is the erosion control plan. I will get right into the architectural. This is the architectural packet that we submitted to the town. This first rendering is from Kendrick Park, across the street from Kendrick Park. It shows looking back towards 1 East Pleasant and 11 East Pleasant. It shows how the site is very narrow as it projects to East Pleasant Street and then shoots back almost 300 feet back to the cemetery. The intent of the building is to finish the courtyard in 1 East Pleasant. As you'll see in further renderings, we've got a pedestrian access that cuts through the building that allows for the pedestrian experience to extend into the middle of the site because it's such a deep site. And the materiality of the building is the same Alaskan yellow cedar as has been used at Kendrick Place and 1 East Pleasant in the past. This is the site plan that shows the roof plan of 11 East Pleasant, shows the building adjacent to the sidewalk, to the north property line, the east property line, and the south property line, shows the pavers and the site wall as the pedestrians. This front section of the building aligns with 1 East Pleasant and allows folks, if they so choose, to be able to walk through and under the building and extend that pedestrian experience. These are the building coverages and lot coverages, which we can go into further, but breakout diagrams to quantify each of those. This is our first floor plan, and this first floor plan shows very well all the things that we were trying to balance on this project. As I said, it's 276 feet long, very long site. This area here is all pavers that are identical to the pavers used at 1 East Pleasant. Would create a continuity of experience amongst from downtown once you're off the public way. The access, the purple along the street is the retail. The building above holds tight to the property line. The first floor below pulls back to create a larger public space, give a little more room, and imply that the entrance to this, the residential entrance to the building is on the south side, undercover, under the overhang of the building up above, which brings you back here into the lobby or into the leasing area and fitness beyond. Again, this is all at grade, working with the civil. That grade gets you through here and you can extend to the north, and the drive vehicular access would come in along the easement, would turn in underneath and would go back to this covered parking in the back. On the ground floor, again, we've got retail with 2 bathrooms associated with it. We've got a lobby that will have mail rooms and sitting areas. We've got an elevator and stair. a package room, which obviously has new meaning now, and a storage area. And beyond it, we've got a leasing office and a leasing lobby, a bathroom, fitness, mechanical, electrical, bike storage along the east wall, management in the back, storage management in the back, trash room here. We've got the lighting shown, where we've got the identical down lights to 1 East Pleasant shown on the exterior. We've got bollard lighting that is shown on this south side, number 2 here. As folks come down along this entranceway, there will be also some recessed site wall lighting in the site walls, and bollard lighting to lead the procession back to the entry. And then we have these strip LED lights that are above this column here and this column here. So these are brick columns that are teardrop shaped that go up to the wood ceiling in this case and the zinc ceiling in this case. And around that column would be an LED light, so it would downlight the brick column itself and highlight the materials. We've got floors 2, 3, 4, and 5 here, where we've got elevator, fire stair, janitor's closet, trash room with a trash chute, and an electrical room. So the form of the building there's kind of a head and a tail here, and this is where the form is broken in the middle. And we have a open corridor on the east side. So when you step off the elevator, you'll be able to look down, out, through, and into the cemetery. We've got a double loaded corridor, which is just about 60 feet wide, perpendicular, 63 feet wide on the angle. You can see that remains the same for floors 2, 3, and 4 are identical. Floor 5, there's a community room on the 5th floor looking to the west over the park. That will be available to all the residents, along with a bathroom. The roof plan shows the approach to mechanical. The stair, elevator, and penthouse is here. Each of our buildings have fresh air that is on the house meter that runs 24/7. That is an energy recovery ventilator. We've got 2 of them here. These are the condensers that run the all-electric, high efficiency, hyperheat electric air source heat pumps that are on the roof. We've got a propane generator that is on the roof. And then on the south side, we have photovoltaic panels that run the entire length of the south and are on the 45-degree angle, which is optimal, and are integrated with the structural requirements of the roof screen, which add up quite a bit. We've got elevations, all 4 elevations. This first elevation on the top is the elevation from Pleasant Street. You can see the first floor is set back. Here's the column that I mentioned that supports that, and floors 2, 3, 4, and 5 step up here. We've got the elevator overrun integrated with the roof screen to hide the energy recovery ventilators and the electric air source heat pumps and the solar photovoltaics facing south. On the north side, you can see the gash, as we've called it through the design process. But this opening that is where the vehicular access and the pedestrian access overlap. You can see the Alaskan yellow cedar siding. As that wraps on floors 2, 3, 4, and 5, it drops down to a couple feet above grade and then raises back up as it gets back to the cemetery. We have a number of sliders in the facade, and those sliders have Juliet balconies. Similar to the Juliet balconies we've installed in other projects. This is a gray brick that is on the ground floor for the bathrooms and the back of the lobby. This gray brick continues underneath the cedar as it encloses the ground floor parking. Up above here on this other elevation, again, you can start to see the site walls again. And then this is the entrance to the building, the residential portion of the building. So anybody coming underneath this overhang here would turn the corner and go underneath here back to this section of the lobby to enter the building. On the south side, facing 1 East Pleasant, you can also see the opening where the form of the building changes. This is the entrance along the south side that would bring you along the retail and then along the lobby. This lobby is obviously part of our means of egress for the building. So that lobby is lit 24/7. That lobby would pull people back here, and then you'd have this ability to see through, walk through, and process through to the properties on the north. These are the site walls, and this shows that we've shown a stair that would connect this lower grade at 11 East Pleasant to the higher grade at 1 East Pleasant through the site wall. This is a view to the leasing area. These windows are to the leasing area. These windows are to fitness. Again, the brick on the ground floor that pops up and the Alaskan yellow cedar above. The zinc accents that are on each of these individual vertical elements in the facade become more pronounced in the middle of this building. So this zinc that is horizontal here wraps under and is the ceiling of that space below. We've got a couple renderings that will help. This is a view, an aerial view of the south. Again, the Alaskan yellow cedar siding, the zinc cladding, and the gray Danish brick on the ground floor. The glass storefront that pushes back to give the public space out front. And then this is the circulation that brings you underneath the cover of the building back to the residential entrance to the building itself. This is the space between 1 East Pleasant and 11 East Pleasant, which is planted with the columnar Armstrong maples at scale that that highlight this view back to cemetery. This is the curb cut that would remain. We'd redo it, obviously, but this is the curb cut for the existing easement that the vehicular traffic would follow up and be able to turn in and get under the building. This is a view from Halleck. Again, the intent here was to show that without the Piper building here, pedestrians are going to be able to look through and see the trees on the backside of the cemetery. So while this is this is a section of the BG district that does abut a residential district, we are 300 feet from houses. There are no houses here. It's a cemetery, obviously. So the setback from houses is beyond the trees in the distance. This is a close-up rendering of the southwest corner to show some of the detailing. This building will have rock wool insulation outboard of the sheathing, as the other buildings have had. We are increasing it on this building to 4 inches, beyond 3 inches. We're using that 4 inches to give depth to the facade, create a rain screen enclosure, give some detailing above the windows where the cedar turns and creates a shadow line, and then allow for the zinc accents to highlight elements of the facade. You can also see the brick below on the first floor where it's turned vertically on the columns. Again, to highlight the verticality of the columns, we've got an overhang. This is the overhang that you would walk under to enter the residential portion of the building, and a wood ceiling that will continue from the outside into the retail and into the lobby. So that whole first floor has a wood ceiling. Here's a view of the south portion of the building where the form changes to accommodate the pedestrian path down below, where you do see the zinc accents becoming more prominent. And again, that zinc becomes the ceiling on the ground floor below, and you've got a wood ceiling up above here. On the north side, we see the materials come together again. We've got the gray brick, Danish brick on the first floor. We've got the Alaskan yellow cedar, and then we've got the zinc accents between the windows. This is the retail space on the ground floor with a wood floor and a wood ceiling. You can see those columns inside the space here, and then that one column that pops out of the space and is kind of the central feature for that plaza out front as people circle around. This little hallway here is back to the bathrooms, and then these are the bollards along the north side of the building. These are the materials. We've got the Peterson Tegel brick. We've got a zinc cladding, and we've got the cedar wood rain screen. So we've kept the material very simple, the form somewhat simple, and then have really tried to push the environmental performance of the enclosure such that we've gone with 4 inches of rock wool insulation outboard of the sheathing. So with that, I think that is as much of the drawings as I intended to go through. This is my first Zoom meeting with the town here, so I could, I'll defer to how else, however else folks want to take it from here.
Thank you, Kyle.
You're welcome.
So
Thank you.
at this, excuse me?
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Very nice looking project, no doubt. Impressive. So at this point, we'd like to summarize the site visit report that the planning board conducted last Friday. Would one of the planning board members like to volunteer that for a presentation summary of what we saw? Where's the hands?
You want me to summarize it?
I guess, yes.
I'd be happy to summarize and then people can add in.
I was gonna recommend you, Johanna, because you asked
Really?
a lot of questions and you seem like locked in. So this is great. Thank you.
Sure. So a bunch of us met at the site on Friday. Initially, we started at the East Pleasant side and just got ourselves kind of anchored on the site, figured out, where are the property boundaries, where would the overhang be? And then we walked essentially the entire perimeter of the site. And I'd say we spent most of the time near the cemetery side and looked at what trees would need to be taken out and what the facade on the back would look like and feel like, and discussed, moving the fence and just like what that interface on the back end would be like. And then we came back around to the front and talked about just the public right of way and how the site would interact with the sidewalk there. So that's what I recall. Others can feel free to chime in.
Yeah, any other additions to that, the site visit report that Johanna provided? Okay, I see none. So we can just have a general discussion from the board members at this time. I have some, but I'd like to hear from our, the several architects on our board because they'll probably cover anything that I would have to say much better. So Hans Maria, please.
Sure. Thanks, Kyle, for that presentation. I had time to look through the set a little more thoroughly after a few other comments, and they kind of touched on the similar issues I had, but first I just want to sing some praises. I really like the attention to detail, the materials, the sort of care about wrapping materials and the carving of the facade, because like you said, it's a really long building. It's tough to make long buildings look good and interesting, and I think you've really achieved that. Particularly on the north side, I love that, what you call the gash. I also love that the fact that you're putting PVs on, just thinking about the future, you've got to do that. And also the exterior Roxel preventing the thermal bridging. That's something that, every project really should take advantage of. It's a pretty minimal add that goes a long way. I also liked how you worked with the site and tried to open it up to get a view of the cemetery. And I wonder if that area with the trees is occupiable at all, if it's just visual, or if it's helping with rain catchment. That was one question I had. And the other question was, I was a little confused about when you said you're going to preserve lot 2. I didn't know what that meant exactly. I know that you were using for staging and taking the building down, but what does that word preserve mean exactly when you were saying? I don't know if you have plans for it, or if it's obviously the part of the project's property, but I just wonder if you could share anything about future steps with that. And I think the last question was if this was also going to be LEED Gold. But I think a lot of other people have mentioned things about, the parking and the retail space, and maybe I'll leave that to other people to bring up. But I have concerns about that, and I don't have any solutions, but I imagine this will be a meeting process, and that well, hopefully we can work with you to hone those pieces and get those optimized. But I feel like this project really listened to a lot of the things that have been said by town members, as far as, you know, making the building feel like it's not right up against the street, having a more of a public space and giving more breathing room at the sidewalk. So yeah, I think that hopefully with, you know, working with the planning department and the planning board and hearing constructive criticism will help make this project better and better. And yeah, thank you for bringing it.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Doug, please.
Did Maria answers to a couple of those questions or not?
For me, that would
are
be
we just-
great if Kyle wants to jump in, or David, and
Sure.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'll hop in. The question about LEED Gold, yes, the intent is that this would be LEED Gold as well, through the LEED for Homes program. Regarding the site to the north, the pub site, the intent was to, it's obviously a very awkward site in terms of shape, in terms of the survey. The intent was to try to, because there are so few downtown BG parcels, to make sure that there's future opportunity in BG. I think that site, it's the goal through the construction period of this project would be that it serves the construction. It keeps it off the street. There's a construction trailer. There's a laydown area. There's mock-ups. There's some limited parking, and the whole area is fenced in. Beyond that, I think the future of that site, because it is the future of that site will have something to do with one of the adjacent sites. I think that we have no plan for it. We don't own any of those properties. I don't have a timeline on any of that stuff. Just thinking long term, when you look at that zoning map and you see that how much of that area in the town of Amherst is single family only, and knowing that we have housing needs that are going to continue long into the future, that we have to think about that. Regarding and you had one more question about rain catchment, Maria. Can you occupy the space underneath the trees? Underneath the trees would be red twig dogwoods, which are similar to the red twig dogwoods that are at 1 East Pleasant. So you can walk through there, but it's not intended to be occupiable. It has a red twig during the winter and it leaves out, and it's pretty robust during the summer.
Very good. Maria, do you have any other follow-up to that? Okay. Doug, please.
Okay. So I'll echo Maria's kind of intro. I think it's a very attractive project, and you've put a lot of attention into breaking down a pretty large building. I guess my biggest question has to do with the retail, the small size of it, and I kind of question how viable it really is. I think I would be very supportive of your thinking about the upper floors and whether you can pull that elevator core back and or rearrange the west end of the building to give you more room for a larger retail area. And I guess I'm a little bit torn about the setback of the retail and the overhang on the west end, because I'd kind of like to give that square footage to the retail, but I understand that you're trying to give a little bit of relief to the sidewalk. I think if I'd have a hard time deciding which way to go if I were making the decision, but I think that's probably the biggest question I'm going to have. The second, sort of related to that, the leasing office, given that you own 2 other buildings in the vicinity, I'm wondering whether you could just lease all 3 from some other building. And so, maybe part of reconfiguring the first floor would be to allow the retail to expand back, and then you don't have leasing office in the way. Third comment has to do with the vehicular access to the parking under the building. That sort of S turn you're asking people to do to get in looks tortuous, and it's hard to really believe if you put the vehicle turning radii on your floor plan. It's hard to believe that works, to be blunt. Maybe it'd be nice to see a diagram just so you can prove it to me that it works. Let's see, next, I guess I'm a little bit surprised to see so much wood on the exterior. I know that you've had several other projects with a little bit of wood that's relatively unfinished. And I know at least the one, I think it's behind Judy's. I've started to see a little bit of the gray weathering, or some people might call discoloration, on those boards. And so I guess I'm just surprised in terms of your durability and the longevity of that material in our climate. I don't know, I guess this is my chance to just go through my list here.
Sure.
The separation between the west end of the building and 1 East Pleasant Street, is it in excess of I think it's 30 feet that the code requires in order to not have to put any fire separation rating on your exterior walls? Next, I guess I'm curious to hear about your target customer base for this building. When I did a breakdown of the bedrooms and the units, you've got 134 bedrooms. 80 of them are 4-bedroom units, and so 60%. And when I look at those 4-bedroom units, those appear to me to be a definite student-oriented unit. It doesn't look like a family unit. So, one of the conversations we've had in town, and a lot of the comments we get about some of your other projects, is that we're building too many beds for students. And I know it's clear you would disagree with that, and I think there are others on both on the board and off who wouldn't have a problem with that. But I guess if you could just talk a little bit about kind of what your target client group is. Parking. Since I wanted to expand the retail, that could impact the number of parking spaces underneath there. And obviously you're not required to do any parking. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about your experience with your other tenants at your other 2 buildings, and how many, if and maybe Chris might have some information, how many of them are ending up getting permits from the town for parking, versus just not having a car. In the packet that we received, the shadow studies were basically illegible. So I'm hoping you can give us a little better information. They were just photocopies and the shadows were not showing up. And then the last question had to do with the sewer capacity that the town has for the project, and whether I didn't really see that on Jason Skeels's report. So that's a question more for Chris to confirm that there is sewer capacity for this project. Thank you.
Great comments, Doug. Thank you. And Kyle, you want to
You want me to go? I see a hand up. Do you want me to respond?
Oh, I think we're looking at some efficiency here in terms of one-on-one response.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So the first question about the retail, Doug. We did look at it a number of different ways. Obviously, retail in the past 15 months has been very difficult to gauge and manage. There's a lot of available space right now. We have a space next door, immediately next door in 1 East Pleasant, that is just under 4,000 square feet, which we have found is too big in some ways, is a large size. And so managing that walkway through the space and working with that vertical core, as you and a couple others have pointed out, is something that we looked at. And the trade-off is larger retail with no back and fewer parking spaces, or what we think is the right size retail. Like we think the 13 to 1,400 square feet gives us a lot of flexibility and more parking in the back. So I think that was the balancing act that we were trying to pull off, and we ended up by pushing, keeping that lobby in the front. We also wanted to keep the residential piece not too far back, because that's the majority of the people are coming up and down residentially, and so that was, and by doing so, obviously being able to provide as many parking spaces as we could, we thought was important. On the leasing office, obviously, as we've started our management company, we've done some things wrong and a few things right, and we're trying to learn and get better as we go. And we've talked with our team about this being a space that could lease from all of the buildings, that could lease all the buildings, and it gives us a little bit of a walkway, gives us some presence. It's not just tucked away in the middle of the lobby like 1 East Pleasant is. And we could right size it, because you really don't need that much space. You just need access. You need people to be able to see you and find you and come over and ask questions as needed. Regarding the vehicular access, we do have a diagram showing turn radiuses, and it does work. It is working with the bollards, working with the height of the gash as it comes in. We worked on that a lot to make that work. If you've got a 4-door long bed truck, it could be a little dicey, but for most vehicles, it works just fine. The wood cladding, these projects are framed in wood. We're looking at mass timber for future projects, because especially a hybrid model where the walls are panelized and the decks are CLT or NLT or one of the other LTs. And in this case, we think it's a very viable cladding product. The wood at Boltwood Place was red cedar. We learned from that. The wood at Kendrick Place is Alaskan yellow cedar. When we installed that, it had an oil-based Cabot bleach on it. That oil-based bleach leached the oils from the wood and led to some discoloration at Kendrick. When we did 1 East Pleasant, we used the same Alaskan yellow cedar because it's much better in our climate, and we used the water-based Cabot bleaching oil, and that works. That doesn't leach the oil from the Alaskan yellow cedar. It gives it a slight gray and allows it to gray gracefully. Once we found that Cabot no longer sells the oil-based, they only sell the water-based, we went back and redid all of the wood at Kendrick Place to do that. We do not have the product yet for Boltwood Place, but we look forward to redoing that one here shortly. The fire separation, yes, we looked at that so we don't end up with sprinkler heads sticking out the side of the building. I appreciate the architectural questions. I can't even read my writing here. The question, the target customer. So we have and that's one of the reasons we have this opening piece here is that's the conversation that Amherst needs to have. Is we have the majority of our housing is rental. The majority of that rental is directly affiliated with the university, whether they're 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years old. That rental housing is not going to that rental demand is not going to subside anytime soon. So it has to go somewhere, and we're in the process of determining where that goes. So I think that one of the wonderful things about having built these buildings and operated these buildings is we've had to prove ourselves. We've had to show that management is the right thing, that the folks that are coming through our buildings are wonderful folks that you want to have downtown supporting local businesses on a daily basis. The parking is always tricky. I think with this long site, we've got that opportunity in the back, we've got the width to do so, a double loaded corridor. We've got the ability to come in and come out. And so I think from a parking standpoint, I don't know the number of permits that have been pulled from the town. But I think as we struggle with a housing crisis, we're going to struggle with housing units or parking units. And that's a conversation that is being had in Berkeley, California, in Durham, North Carolina, in Ann Arbor, Michigan, in a lot of places where the housing demands are so high that people are asking those questions. The solar studies, obviously those are PDFs, so we can get you, clean solar studies. The sewer, actually the town replaced the sewer from the roundabout up to just past 1 East Pleasant back in 2017. So it does have the capacity. The pipes that come out of these buildings are as big as the line in the street, which serves the entire downtown. So the codes extend we have the ability to tie in out in the street into new infrastructure. And I think that was it.
Thank you.
Doug, you're good. So at this time, it's 8 o'clock. Usually we take a little 5-minute break and then we can get back to more board questions. And just for everyone's information, this looks like this will, take more than one night. But we would like to, wrap up tonight, 9:30 and not go to midnight as which no one would would like. So just keep that in mind, but let's take a 5-minute break and we can get to Andrew. He has his hand up next. All right, so we're back online.
We are back.
All right, we're good to go. Andrew, please.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks, Kyle. It was a very comprehensive presentation, and I'm impressed by your recall of all the materials and that attention to detail. It really is. It is a beautiful design. I had actually some of my questions overlapped with some that were already asked. So maybe a couple tweaks to my original thoughts would be, I had similar concerns around the retail and how that might be reconfigured. Actually, I hadn't even thought about Doug's suggestion, or it sounds like you've thought about it as well, of moving the retail office. I mean, could you just make the whole head be retail, right? And then shift over, and I lost my version of the plan here, but could you move some of the building amenities like the gym to the second floor, like take up some apartment space, but then have an area which is dedicated purely to retail, and as you're saying, the 4,000 may be too big, but maybe you can get multiple 1,300 square foot retailers in there if you think that that's more of an optimal size. But I'm wondering if that's something that you might consider, is just playing with some of that configuration and putting the lobby, the package kind of back into the tail half. My list is pretty short, so that's one thought. It's like one of the first things I thought when I saw this is like, wow, it's a lot of impervious surface, but then kind of reading through it sounds like there's a reduction in impervious surface because of the materials you're using, the planting. So kudos to that. I'm not an architect. I don't know enough about sort of the mechanicals that you have on the roof, but is there any opportunity to put any type of water reclamation on the roof, or rooftop garden or something to that effect, to just green it up? That was a thought that I had. And then maybe tweaking a little bit on one of Doug's questions around the target customer, and maybe I'll drill a little bit deeper. Have you determined what your rental rates would be? Like that might give us also a sense of who those target customers might be. And yeah, I think that's the only kind of new stuff I would ask. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on that, Kyle.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, with the retail and where to put it, and is it all in the head or is it partially in the tail? Driving into the parking is kind of the thing that sets all of that. And so you're left with this space on the south side, which works very well for the leasing office and the retail. I'm sorry, the leasing office and the fitness. Pushing the vertical circulation, the lobby and everything back into that was just never worked out for us. It ended up pushing the drive aisle way back. It ended up changing the circulation through the middle, and created a retail space that had no back, which was not what we were looking for. We wanted that. And then in order to bring a back to the retail, which every retail needs, we had to kind of brick up that walkthrough, because that would then be the back of the retail. And so we looked at it a bunch of different ways and settled on what we have, because I think it gives us, the best location for all the stuff that has to run vertical next to the elevator from a mechanical standpoint and everything else, and then really allowed that ground floor to work out. And I understand the desire for potentially making that 1,500 into 2,500 square feet, which I think would be about the max. But I don't think that 1,000 square feet is, I think the benefits of the plan outweigh a slightly larger retail space. And that's kind of, we started moving around that wall between the retail and the lobby to try to get a right fit. For the stormwater, yep, it's an existing site that has a lot of pavement on it already. And we obviously try to improve that. We've looked at, green rooftops a whole bunch, but it's tough to pull off unless you're really occupying that and making that part of your floor effectively for a space that's being occupied, like the design building at UMass, where you have this occupiable space that you go to, and none of our roofs are occupiable. And then the target customer and the rental rates, again, we believe that the people we have living in Kendrick Place and the people we have living in 1 East Pleasant are absolute benefits to our downtown, are absolute benefits to the businesses in downtown, are absolute benefits to the street life in downtown, and are the folks that will likely occupy this building.
Thank you, Kyle. Tom?
Sure, thanks. Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Kyle. Kyle, I really, as an architect, appreciate your project. The walkthrough on the site helped me really kind of understand what you're trying to accomplish. I think Doug and Maria pretty much asked all of my architectural questions that I might have about how certain things function. And I think, as a zoning board, I'm also on the design review board, so I might have more questions and comments when I see you on that board in a week or so. But one of the things that I think, as a developer who's doing work in this area, at the scale that you are, and the impact that you're having as an organization individually on this community, I'm interested in your awareness of the conversation in our current climate of developing inclusionary zoning and or affordable housing within our downtown, as well as in other areas, and the need for it and the demand for it. And so we speak about the demand for your clientele that you want to bring in, your impact on the community. It's also important in terms of your ability to bring affordable housing to this community. And that hasn't happened, and it may or may not happen with this particular project. So I guess my question is really two parts, and I think one's for Kyle and one's for Chris. And Kyle, I'm interested in what you see your responsibility to the community in terms of affordable housing, in terms of bringing a more diverse community to Amherst, and what role you can play in doing that. And then Chris, what options and procedures are in our toolkit to encourage affordable housing in a project like this, given that we have to give special permits and make negotiations around certain things that we have to give back. So I'm curious about procedure on that. So Kyle, I'm sure you've heard this conversation in town. I'm interested in your perspective and how you see this project fitting into that matrix.
So I'm going to call on Chris because you broached a subject that was on my mind as well with regard to the inclusionary zoning. So Chris?
So the planning board and the CRC, the Community Resources Committee, and planning staff have been working with the building commissioner on a number of zoning amendments, some of which were brought to us by town council and some of which the planning department and the building commissioner have put forward. And, you know, certainly there are some zoning amendments that may have an impact on this project, and I'm sure Kyle is aware of those. One of them is inclusionary zoning. So we have an inclusionary zoning bylaw that to date has been not very, I shouldn't say not very successful. It has been successful in bringing some affordable units to town. And in the last couple of years, it's brought 20 affordable units. Prior to that, it was very weak. And we've also made efforts with regard to working with developers to develop comprehensive permit projects where a certain percentage of the project is provided as affordable units. Usually it's 20 to 25% in exchange for certain modifications of zoning requirements. In any event, the town is now considering making its inclusionary zoning bylaw more robust, and there is a public hearing scheduled with the planning board and the CRC for May 19th. And we're hoping that there's a successful outcome of that, that there are recommendations from the planning board and the CRC to town council to adopt the new bylaw. At the same time, there are mechanisms that developers can use to not comply with that bylaw. There are mechanisms that are built into state law that I'm sure Kyle and Dave are aware of. How can I make this simple? The first publication of the legal ad for the planning board's public hearing was Tuesday in the Gazette. So that's kind of a milestone that means something in terms of whether zoning bylaws, new zoning bylaws affect a project or not. But, you know, Kyle and Dave are working with their attorney, and I'm sure he is aware of different mechanisms that can be brought to bear by developers to avoid complying with zoning bylaws that are being considered. So in any event, that is in the works. So we're planning department, planning board, et cetera, are working on that. And we'll see what comes to pass. The other thing that we're working on is mixed use building zoning amendments. So either of those may or may not affect this project. I can't say, and I haven't had a conversation with the developers about this. And certainly if they want to talk to me about it, I'm happy to talk to them, but that's kind of the status of things right now. We're moving along with an inclusionary zoning bylaw. It's all on, there's a link to it on Engage Amherst. There's a little box that you can click, or maybe it's not a box, it's a link that you can click to get to the zoning amendments page on the planning department webpage that will tell anybody who wants to know what the planning board and the planning department and the CRC are working on with regard to zoning amendments. And that is one of them. So does that answer your question? Sort of?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, I'm interested in hearing from Kyle on that and maybe having a discussion after.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as one of my comments at this point in time, yes, the town is at this point where we're reviewing so many zoning bylaws. They're all in play. We have this buildings moratorium that we're gonna, hear you know, in a couple of weeks. So there's all these things circling around the town that concern planning board decisions. And, you know, I would hope that you have some, you know, provisions to knowing that these, you know, some of these changes may be, you know, imminent. And so with that, Kyle, do you want to respond to Tom's?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Obviously, this project we've been working on for years. We've been talking with Laird about it. There have been a number of leases that have been in place. And obviously the existing buildings on site are not long-term highest and best use for the property. So when we get involved in a project and we don't own the land and we have to procure the land, we have to go by what the bylaw states. And that's how we have designed this building per the bylaw. So there is a section of the there's a section of the bylaw that's inclusionary zoning. There are height limitations, there are setback limitations. That is all we have to go by as developers who are looking to obviously invest a great deal of money in town and pay a great deal of money in real estate taxes to try to put together a project to the detail that we've been able to put together. So we have designed this project per the existing bylaw. The existing inclusionary zoning portion has dimensional special permits that trigger inclusionary zoning. This project does not trigger any of those. So the number of units that Chris referenced in terms of adding 20 affordable units is obviously very important. I mean, the town of Amherst has spent a great deal of money to ensure that they are, you know, above 10% for 40B purposes, and to try to bring as much affordable housing as possible. The affordable units is, you know, 10%. The 40B process is 10%, right? And so we obviously have to focus a lot on that 10%, but we also have to focus on the 90%, which is the market. And that is the market that is consuming Amherst. That 90% is the reason you have a 10% problem. And the 90% is about producing housing. So any zoning amendment that makes it harder to produce housing in any way, shape, or form is going to work against the long-term goal of housing production. And I think that that's where Amherst finds itself right now, is in a situation where each decision has to be viewed that way. Is this decision going to make it easier to produce housing, or more difficult to produce housing? And that's the basis for a lot of the stuff that has changed at the state level, because that's when that gets applied at a municipality across the entire Commonwealth, then the number of housing units that you build over a 30-year period gets cut in half. So in terms of our responsibility, Tom, I think, you know, Dave and I have always approached this from a responsibility to improve the downtown, right? I mean, when we bought Kendrick Park, it was paying $3,000 a year in real estate taxes, Kendrick Place. It was a vacant parcel. When we bought and worked with the folks who own the carriage shops to redevelop that, that was paying $17,000, $18,000 a year. The fraternity up at Olympia Drive was also paying $15,000 a year. Those three projects now pay $1 million a year annually to the town of Amherst. So we take that as a very serious responsibility. I think that additional tax dollars do a lot of things that we, you know, trust the town to do the best they can with. But that's $1 million that the town has now through our improvements in town that they did not have before we got started working. So I think that Amherst needs to stay focused on the 90%, the market, because that is by far the biggest elephant in the room. The 10% obviously is extremely important. We have to decrease our diversity. I think if you see the tenants that are in our buildings, you can see it's a very diverse tenant base. It is, you know, it well represents the people that come through our wonderful town on an annual basis. And I think it's, and I think if we lose track of making sure that we produce housing in the next 5 to 10 years, that's going to serve Amherst well.
Thank you, Kyle. And Janet, please.
So I have just a few things to say, just to kind of keep the record straight, is that there is no residential zoning district in Amherst that doesn't allow multiple units on it. So we don't have single family zoning, and that's the only thing you can build on the lot. We have the supplemental dwelling units, and as we've learned through footnote M, a lot of our, you can, and through converted dwellings, there's, you can build multiple units on most residential lots, probably not in the RO maybe. And so I just want to put that to the side. And then we do have a lot of institutional zoning, and that is called UMass, Amherst College, and Hampshire College, and they're very capable of building housing for their students. And we would wildly encourage them to build more. So that land isn't locked up and kept away from more housing. So I just thought that presentation was a little bit not quite what I think is the real, the facts on the ground. Amherst has met its housing production plan goals that we had for 5 years, and then we kept going and we kept on handing out more permits. The issue we have now is we met the housing production plan goals for number of units, but we didn't meet it for middle and low income people and affordable. Well, actually, probably, blue collar and affordable low income housing meets. And that's the problem we keep on facing. And so I think the question that Tom is asking is, do you feel like you have a commitment to also provide some of those units as you're also making money and benefiting from, or actually very liberal multi mixed use building things. You're also asking for a lot more space. You're asking us to waive setback requirements. And I'm wondering, is there something you want to give in exchange for that? But one thing I'm really wondering is, how tall is this building? Because when you showed the map, which was called PR 20.01, the elevations map, it showed a 57-foot building, which would trigger our current affordable housing requirement, because you're asking for 2 feet. But then when I saw the development report, it seems like maybe you've lowered that to 1 foot 9 inches to kind of get away from that. So I didn't really understand, how tall do you want this building to do? I know you get 55 feet. Do you want that extra 2 feet that would trigger the 10% requirement? So I if you could just answer those specifically.
Sure. I think the point on the initial drawing, Janet, and the single family is Dave and I are of the opinion that the scale of the housing issue is much larger than the housing production plan highlights. And I think that's going to be more apparent in 18 months than it was 18 months ago. I think you see that with the average home price. I think you see that with rents. I think you see that with people looking to continue to develop in and around Amherst. So I think that the issue is, if we don't build the housing, we're obviously not going to get any affordable units, but that 90% of the market will continue to rise. So the $290,000 average home price in plans from 2013 is now closer to $400,000 average home price in 2020. So those things will continue to happen if, as this place continues to have a very high quality of life, continues to be 2 hours from Boston, continues to be 3 hours from New York City, especially post-COVID, with people being able to Zoom and work from wherever they want. And I think if you talk to any of the realtors who are selling single-family homes right now, there's obviously a demand issue and a supply issue, and I think that's going to get worse. Regarding the height of the, I can't, you're on mute. I can't hear you.
You're helping us build housing. It's not a question of like, we're not going to build anything or we're going to build everything. But I understand there's a bigger framework, and that's actually something that the planning board and the town council and planning department are all grappling with, and you're grappling with, and you're also benefiting it from it, right? And so, Mike, the question is,
as is the town.
Yeah, and so has this. I mean, the other question I'm very, like Tom is asking, would you be willing to do some affordable housing because you're getting kind of extra, you're asking for a setback. But I'm just wondering, is this building going to be 57 feet high? Because then you're just triggering our current requirements. and then we can just move on to talking about retail and other issues. I mean, or did you lower it? Or, you know, I have two different numbers in front of me. I have a stack of paper. So are you
Well, I
asking
think
for
if
2 feet or 1 foot 9 inches?
I believe it should be clear in the documents that we've submitted. So I don't know if there's some different documents that went out. We are not intending to go beyond the 2 feet that is allowed as discretionary within inclusionary zoning. So it's beyond 2 feet as is written in 15.1.
Okay, so it's not 1 foot 9 inches. So it's okay. All right. And so, okay, so that was one of my questions, or I was trying to get some clarification from. You know, I do have a lot of questions, and one of them is about the retail space. So your buildings have increased our taxes, you know, produced taxes, and you've produced units, and people are shopping from those. The tenants are, and yet there's fewer and fewer retail spaces because your buildings have replaced them. And so I think the idea of having a bigger retail thing in the storefront and maybe having a couple of small spaces would be places that your tenants can shop and could help keep small businesses in town that were lost. So I think that's a great idea. So that's one thing. In terms of parking, I think this is an issue that we're going to have to talk a lot about, because this is a no parking district, but there's parts of this, both the special permit requirements and the requirements for site plan review, that they're adequate facilities for the people, for the building, its use, and the people who use it, and that you're not creating a nuisance for you know, people, the buildings around you or the town. And we all know that the number of spaces provided by the buildings that you guys have built hasn't, people, like many of your tenants have gone out and gotten permits from the town. 40 or 45 of them seem to be parking in that parking lot that will be where 15 East Pleasant is. And so you know, the question I think we need to do is gather information is, how many permits have people from Kendrick Place and what East Pleasant Street been asking for the town? I have some information here in addition, you know, and so, you know, how much parking are your tenants going to need? And I think we're kind of circling around the question of who are you renting to? So I think 3 of us have asked you, are you renting to undergraduates, graduates, university professors, families, you know, working people, plumbers? Can you give us a sense in very specific terms, like, is it mostly undergraduates? Is it 30%? Is it 20%? I'm sure they're all fine people, but we keep on asking this question over and over again. And I think we just want an answer. Who do you expect these tenants to be? Who are your tenants in the other buildings? You know, what percentage are undergrads versus grads?
Well, we build market rate housing, and we don't exclude anybody. And that's the, you know, the tenants in our building are the same mix as the 53% of the housing units in Amherst that are rentals. Obviously, there are undergraduates. Obviously, there are graduates. Obviously, the need that we satisfy in our units is the same need that's satisfied on the other 5,000 units that are rented in Amherst.
So your tenants are and will primarily be students then? Is that what you just?
There will
I feel
absolutely
like
be students in
examination, but I just want to know the information.
Well, and that's why I've shown the pictures of our social media, you know, that is available to anybody. I mean, our social media, our property management, that the need that Amherst has is being satisfied by all 5,000 rental units in this town. And that need is going to continue for as long as any of us are here in Amherst.
Okay, so it's mostly, okay. I think that's all I wanted to know. I wanted to also talk about setbacks and public space.
Did you want to talk about parking as well, Janet?
Oh, yes.
You want me to talk? I mean, the municipal parking district that was, I think, first instituted in the 50s had a purpose. And that was to ensure that with these unique, awkward lots that the town was able to redevelop and was able to bring housing downtown. And I think that continues to be the issue. As I said earlier, there are a number of municipalities around the country that are eliminating parking because they realize it adds cost to buildings, it increases rents, and it reduces the number of housing units that you can provide. And so that is a struggle that is across the country in a lot of high quality of life places where a lot of people want to live, and there's a large rental market. And I think that that is something that Amherst, we obviously have to manage here in Amherst. We've tried to provide as much parking as we can on site and still be able to afford the buildings that provide the housing and pay the taxes and provide the retail that they do. In terms of the size of the retail spaces, obviously when we worked with the folks at the carriage shops to redevelop that property, there were a number of retail spaces. A number of them were no longer viable. We've got a number of retail spaces that are no longer viable through COVID. The retail environment has completely shifted as everybody orders everything online right now. And we have a fantastic strip as far as strips go that is 3 minutes from downtown Amherst with a sea of parking as far as you can see in front of it. So the competition, the retail future of Amherst is definitely going to be different than it has been in the past. And I think that we have tried to right size the retail needs in each of our buildings relative to what we see as the larger housing needs. And I think that is, again, that's what our downtown needs to be. And the way that the retail survives and thrives is by having people living there, by people in walking distance, by people who don't have to park in order to get a bagel or to get a coffee or go out to eat.
Good. I think he hit.
Janet,
I keep on muting, or I think my computer keeps muting me. So, okay, so anyway, so that was, I have a question for you, Jack, because I know that I'm sure there's a lot of people who want to make public comment, and, I'm an attorney. And so I look at all the special permit requirements and all the site plan review language, and, and I'm, deep into the heart of nonconformity. And so I wonder how we can organize this, because we could just all run through our list, but I do have more things. Like, do we want to, in the future, say, let's talk about parking in retail, let's talk about setbacks or public space? Do we want to organize that more? I just throw that out to you.
Well, no, I feel like this is very, an initial sort of presentation of initial feedback to Archipelago with regard to their design. Hopefully, Kyle and David, you have found the comments thus far helpful. There definitely will be more because we haven't taken public comment. We were waiting what the design review board. Chris, what else is out in the wings there?
The other group that you'd want to hear from is you'd want to hear from the tree warden about the trees that are proposed to be taken down along the cemetery property line. And you'd also want to hear from the Historical Commission about any potential impacts that the project may have to the cemetery. So the Historical Commission is going to be hearing about this project, I think sometime in mid-May, and the Design Review Board is going to be reviewing it, I believe, on Monday, May 10th at 5 o'clock. And so hopefully by the next time you meet with the developers, the applicants, you will have heard from them. And my suggestion would be to allow public comment tonight and continue the public hearing to June 2nd. And then, Kyle and Dave can come back with answers to the things that they've heard. And you'll have more opportunity to talk among yourselves, and the public will have more opportunity to make comments.
So Jack, could I just, can I just take a two seconds more just to talk about setbacks and public space, just to alert the applicants. So I think, I was walking down around one East Pleasant. I walked all the way from, one end of East Pleasant up to Antonio's. And in a lot of ways, One East Pleasant is an anomaly in the Amherst Center and on that road. The sidewalk gets super tiny. I didn't actually realize that there was public space, like that kind of area that where the restaurant tables were, and it's kind of dark and overhung. I never thought about that as public space. Our sidewalks are much wider, and the buildings are set back, and there's gardens, and there's benches, and so it all gets really narrow at East Pleasant Street. So I would love to see this building open the sidewalk up again and have the building set back more, so there is more public space, there's more plantings and trees, and we get that look of our downtown put together in a more inviting way. There's, and I was walking along One East Pleasant, and like people were trying to pass me and couldn't, and so it's so narrow. And so I think, when I saw 15 East Pleasant, I was like, we need to make this much bigger. And so I think I'd like to, maybe the planning department could do like a study of the setbacks of buildings and the sizes of sidewalks throughout the center, so we can, have a coherent kind of street experience and kind of fix the problems we have with One East Pleasant. And we can't fix that one, but we don't have to continue it and make it hard for people to walk. And I didn't really have any sense of public space in the overhanging thing. I don't think people would actually think it was public space. That's it.
Just real quickly on that, there are the vast majority of buildings around the common have 0 lot line. That is the bylaw, how it's written, that the building itself sits on the property line facing the public way. The only difference with One East Pleasant is how close the town put the curb on the street relative to that property line, so that there is no space to put a sidewalk in front of it. There's not that same space that you have in front of Hastings, or in front of Judy's, or in front of High Horse. That space is not there, because when they redid the south end of Kendrick Park and made the little parklet across the way, that got reconfigured, and it became close to imposing on private property. So it's not, the intent of the bylaw is to put buildings on the property line. The issue that you're complaining about at One East Pleasant is relative to how narrow the town's curb is to those property lines.
So
at One East Pleasant.
that's something the board might want to think about, is having the building kind of go back more and creating that, because if you
But there's
want
much
20
more
feet on one
space.
side-
If you look at the property
Yeah.
line, if you look at the site plans for 11 East Pleasant, there is much more space between the property line and the curb line at 11
Yeah.
East Pleasant than there is at One East Pleasant. It gets much wider there. So that space is available in the public way.
You
So
know,
anyway, that was just, anyway, okay.
Yeah, obviously, the One East Pleasant Street was properly, consistent with the bylaws there. And it was just a unfortunate circumstance where I think, visually, if we would have, taken everything together, that, perhaps the setback would have been suggested there, but it was compliant. One East Pleasant Street is compliant, but I think everyone recognizes that it's a pinch point, and probably, hopefully the town will fix it, down the road in terms of making a little bit wider there. But it's
Well,
certainly not
The plan,
incumbent on Archipelago, because it was.
but that's, but Jack, that's a condition that the planning board could impose, is that we can require greater setbacks than, so.
Right, but I'm just reviewing the One East Pleasant, how that was, it's compliant with the bylaws, but probably if we had looked at it again, might have asked, for a setback there. But hopefully the town at some point can reconfigure and make the sidewalks a little bit wider there,
Yeah.
and come up with a fix. So
I'm just saying is that if I was in the planning board, I would have said, hey, under section 10.4, we can impose a larger setback. And so we do have that power here to kind of move the building around a little bit.
Yeah.
Not like a Ouija board, but we do have that power, so.
And I think there is a setback, there's open space there on the first floor, which is nice and definitely needed there. So that's a positive. Maria?
Oh, Chris Chris has her hand up. Maybe she's speaking to something.
Oh.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Chris.
I just wanted to remind everybody that we really need to raise our hands when we want to speak and not just have a dialogue back and forth. I think it kind of gets out of hand. So, you know, Jack is in charge of recognizing people, and people really should respect that of raising hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Maria.
Thanks, Kyle, for all your sort of responses. And I do agree that the way to solve this housing crisis as far as not having enough affordable housing is to create more housing. Just not going to get there without that basic fact. But I do ask if you could just reconsider the retail, because like you said, you know, it's a changing market. It's changed a lot already, and we're doing a lot more online shopping, but you know, 5, 10, 20 years from now, we don't know what's going to happen. So just making it more flexible by providing something a little more, have a little more ability to be like multi-function, multi-purpose, because, you know, it's retail. It probably would never be a cafe or a restaurant. There's just not enough sort of back of house space, but, you know, just thinking about the future and having that flexibility, it just does seem a little tight, just like a lot of members have said. And so in moving forward, if there's just maybe you could show us the options that you've already, you know, studied, and this is the best way, and just to help us know, like, yeah, you've covered a lot of other ways to look at it, but that this absolutely is the right one. And just because it does seem on the small side. So, but otherwise, yeah, I look forward to the next iteration.
Yeah, just gonna kind of go off what Maria said. In my very you know, humble experience with regard to retail is that you know, people, small businesses have a problem affording the rental rates downtown, and I'm just wondering if you increase that open air space in front, and you have, like, you know, like 3 seasons sort of you know, businesses out in front where it's affordable for, you know, some of the and capture some of the family business sort of vibe that you know, some of the former buildings there that, again, they weren't really thriving businesses, but I think that's might be what, you know, folks might be looking for to see when they go downtown. It just to see, you know, people in the streets and you know, vendors and you know, kind of culture kind of coming at you as you're walking down the sidewalk. But that's just my 2 cents. Any other comments? Doug?
Thanks, Jack. You reminded me of something I had thought about and forgot to say earlier, and that, Kyle, when I think about the buildings that are down on the common, that are all 0 lot line buildings, there's a pretty strong horizontal, what I'll call a sign band, between the first floor and the rest of the building that's up above it. And that, combined with the way the first floors are detailed, you don't really think a lot about the building that's up above when you're walking along the street. Your attention is pretty fully focused on the street, and the sort of architecture of the building doesn't really it's not very present at the street. You know, it's mostly glass, but I think the buildings that you've done have pretty strong vertical columns, and when they come down to the street, they're sort of, it's almost like they're too present. It's like, and I'm not articulating this well, but and I'm not sure it's really even appropriate to the building you've got, because you've got such setback at the first floor on this building. But just a comment, but in particular, the sign ban, to go back to that, and having sort of a flexible place for your businesses, for your tenants in the buildings to advertise themselves, I think that would help the buildings feel more urban. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Doug. And I don't see any other hands amongst the board. So it's we're approaching 9 o'clock, and depending on the number of attendees, the public comment, I'm not sure. I see some hands coming up. I would like to give, I'm going to wait here a minute. I'd like the public attendees to raise their hand just so we have an idea of what we're looking like for, timeline for tonight anyway. There's the comments. I see 7. So that's 20 minutes. And okay, that seems doable. All right, so I think we'll just start taking public comment without any other public or excuse me, planning board comment members comments at this time. Okay. All right, so first let's call on Pam Rooney. Pam, state your name and address, please.
Hi, Pam Rooney, 42 Cottage Street. Thanks for letting me speak. Appreciated hearing the background and the sort of the coverage of the project. I've got about 30 points, which I don't have time to do in my 3-minute allotment. So I'm going to just focus on a couple of things that weren't really talked about in Mr. Wilson's presentation, and that's safety. And I'm focusing primarily on safety of Prey Street, which is a major pedestrian walkway and also a very narrow parking lot with perpendicular parking. And I'm going to ask if one of the conditions from the planning board can be that construction entrance be from East Pleasant Street only, thus avoiding the sort of the pedestrian and parking lot portion of Prey Street. I think that's an extremely dangerous street already. Having construction vehicles is going to add to that. Secondly, safety during construction on East Pleasant Street. I know we had to walk around onto the street for 1 East Pleasant Street, and I would like to at least see some description and documentation of how they plan to handle pedestrian safety on East Pleasant Street during construction. Again, all of this is a major pedestrian route from north of Triangle from the high school and trickling down into the center of town. Let's see, safety. One of the things that 1 East Pleasant Street was required to do was to create a more appropriate pedestrian crossing to Kendrick Park. And according to the Jason Skeels report, that improvement never got done by Archipelago, and that really should be done prior to any SPR or SPP in this round. I'm going to reiterate one of the things that is that we're sorely lacking the public way. We have a very, very strong set of we have a very strong sidewalk language that starts way back by Antonio's, continues on the east side of North Pleasant Street, and then East Pleasant Street past Xana's to the Toy Box. 1 East Pleasant Street completely truncates that language. And I would hope that the board will condition that 11 East Pleasant Street reinstate the street language that was developed by Dodson Associates some years back, and that we see the same materials. We see actually go back and do an improvement of the 1 East Pleasant sidewalk, which is absolutely subpar and one of the worst examples of urban hardscape I've ever seen. And I hope that maybe this project can rectify that. Another public way issue is that I see absolutely no street tree plantings shown on the street side of the project. Why is that stretch not handled similarly to the Zana Toy Box stretch, where you have 20 feet from face of curb to back of sidewalk? Any additional public space that the project wants to create beyond that would be very, very welcome, and in fact would really enhance their building, but at least reinstate the proper public way. And I'm going to stop at that. I've got a lot more comments, but I think these are some sort of major considerations that would make this project a whole lot better if you sort of address the public presence of this building rather than the architectural details. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Next, we have Dorothy Pam. Hi, Dorothy. State your name and address. Thank you.
229 Amity Street. I just have a few questions at this time. One of the things that is, in terms of Kendrick Park, that is missing is that there's no public bathroom there, and people used to use the Loose Goose, which is now gone. And there are no shops or places that I know of which have a bathroom which can be used by the public. And I think I heard you say something about a bathroom on the first floor in a kind of public lobby area near the pedestrian walkway. So I was interested to know if in fact that was a bathroom that could be used as the Loose Goose's bathroom had been used in the past for people in Kendrick Park. And the second question is, I don't totally understand the design. I know there's a pedestrian walkway. There's also an entrance to first floor parking. Is there any space where the pedestrians and the cars share the same path? Or are they totally separate paths? And the last one is, I do like the see-through path to the cemetery. I think that is very nice. But I wasn't sure why you would try to reduce setback from the cemetery, which is, you know, it's a very special place. The mural was just redone, rededicated, and just don't crowd it in. So, I mean, there may be some reason that you have no choice, but I just wondered about that. So those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dorothy. Next would be Kathy Schoen. State your name and address, please.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, it's Kathy Shane. I live at
Jane, I'm so sorry. I should know that. I apologize. I apologize.
Wait a minute. I just accidentally. Hi, Kathy. I accidentally disabled your speaking.
Okay. No, you don't have to apologize. One of my nephews changed the spelling of the last name so that it would get spelled pronounced right. I'm going to try not to repeat the comments, but just expand on a few on how far back from the street the building starts, and Pam's point about it's not consistent coming through town. What is the public way? And my sense of what's happened over time historically in Amherst, because I asked Chris on the street, I live on Montague Road. I said, what does it look like if I went up Montague Road? My house, the house next to me. And she said, oh, you can get on the GIS map, and it varies all the way up the street. So what a lot of other places have done is measured it from the edge of the street to make a consistent how far back. So the setback is not from the existing sidewalk. So I think this is something we don't have on our books, but we could, as was pointed out, we could adjust it. If it's the current sidewalk that's there, it's going to be narrow. And what happened when the carriage shops were there is you never noticed how narrow it was because you had big wide driveways into a shopping area. So the other question so it's on setbacks. The second is on height. 1.9 inches is less than 2 feet. And I'm sure that was chosen carefully. I don't understand why we don't count the total height of the building. It's going to have condensers on the roof. It's going to solar arrays on the roof. And this has become a big issue in New York City, not it is an urban area where the mechanicals, there was an argument, mechanicals just don't count in some way, but they do add to the height of the building. So I'm just looking for ways that the planning board can negotiate around some of this, because the actual building will be higher. And I think it will be important to look at those shadows. I have one picture for One East Pleasant from the fall, and I want to get one from the spring. And this building is going to be directly across from Kendrick Park, where there'll be a new playground. So I think it's important to think about what happens to the street side, and that'll be vary by how close to the street it is. Then my totally unrelated question is on Spring Street. There's another building being built that seems to have stopped construction altogether. And the town council granted a temporary 15 months to obstruct the sidewalk and build out, and that ended in January. So I don't remember it coming back, but the building was supposed to be finished. So I'm just wondering whether there was a financial difficulty and why start a new building before you finish the old one. That's an unrelated, but related to the financial capacity. And I think I will just stop on that. But for rents, there was a question about what kind of rents you're looking at. If you look at what's posted on Spring Street, the building that hasn't opened yet, I think you get a good sense as a planning board what kind of rents. And it's in the $2,000 for studio range. So it's not dissimilar to what was at One East Pleasant. And I have information if you want it, and I can just send it in. There was a question on how many parking permits the buildings took out. And so as of 2019, 57 East Pleasant Street took out 59 permits, and One East Pleasant took out 68 permits. So the people who are living in those buildings do have cars, and they are seeking to buy a permit. Now, we sell them really cheap in town, so they're not, but they are buying a permit, so I assume they have a car. And I think I'll just stop there, because I just wanted to expand on a few of the points, both the question, the height, the setback, and then is this really ready to go? Wouldn't we want to get the other building finished first? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Shane. All right. Hey, I think, can we circle back to Spring Street? Because I think that that requires, I think it'd be good to have an update in terms of that development.
Sure. Spring Street is on 26 Spring Street. It's obviously behind Grace Church and police station and so on. We shut 26 Spring Street down the day before the mayor of Boston shut down all construction in Boston in March of 2020 for COVID. We did that because of its very sensitive location, and we obviously sensed that something very difficult was occurring, which obviously turned out to be the case. So we turned it off. We did not turn it back on. We tried to turn it back on with a new contractor this spring, which we intend to do. When we did so, Rockwool is 6 months out right now from any of their 3 North American manufacturing facilities, in between like 150 and 180 days or something like that. So the building has been framed up to the first floor. The framing remaining is 2.5 months. And with Rockwool being 6 months out, if we started right now, we would be staring at a framed building for 3.5 months while we waited for the Rockwool to arrive. So we shut Spring Street down for COVID. We have tried to turn it back on and now caught in the supply chain issues, not mentioning the lumber prices, but just the ability to procure and get enough Rockwool for the building, which is the limiting factor. And Rockwool is the best insulation you can use. It's outboard the sheathing on that building like it's been on these others. And it's obviously very popular right now.
How much I know a lot of the construction materials have increased by, I don't know if it's 50, 100, 200%, but hopefully the Rockwool has not gone that.
Rockwool is more of just being able to get it. With all the stuff, including the ice storms in Texas and all this other stuff, has really upset the lumber, the construction supply chain. Lumber futures are, if you look at any of the graphs, are, multiples of what they normally are. So
Yeah.
We thought that that was going to be 3 months coming, 4 months ago, we didn't know what was going on. 5 months ago, we didn't know if there were vaccines. We didn't know if we were getting a new president. We didn't know anything. So now that we know, it's just turned all back on, and prices have gone up, and availability has gone down. So, we thought that those hiccups would be 3 months. It turns out those are more likely 9 months, 12 months. And you're seeing that across the economy. I think when people try to get rental cars and you can't get them is when that'll be most apparent.
Thank you very much, Kyle, for the update on
You bet.
not this not the subject of this hearing, but it's just a good
It's
FYI
valid.
for all of us. So thank you.
Jack, Chris Brestrup has her hand raised.
Oh, okay, Chris.
So I just wanted to note something that if this project gets its permits, in this summer, I'm not sure when it would get them, but in the next few months, that doesn't mean that the project is going to start under construction. There's a lot of work that needs to be done by the applicants to get their building design finished. They're showing you, a design that's in the formative stage, but they have to go back to their architects and mechanical people and plumbing and all of those people and get the building designed to the point where they can get a building permit. So it's not like, well, you might ask, well, if they can't work on Spring Street, how come they're pushing this ahead? Well, it just takes a very long time to move these projects forward. And so who knows what the situation is going to be like in 6 months or 9 months. But, this is one of the steps they need to take to move this building along. So I just wanted to offer that explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. All right, let's go back to the public comment. Dorothy, is your hand up? Probably not, because you just spoke.
No, it just went down. Okay.
Oh,
so
okay,
then
good. All right, so
next-
we have Ira Brick, please. Ira, state your name and address, please.
I am Ira Brick, 255 Strong Street. I just want to make a few points. One is that I understand that the 3 projects being built by Archipelago are bringing in $1 million of tax revenue. And of course, that's important, but the town budget is $82 million. So we basically are making drastic changes downtown to get the revenues of 1.2% of the town budget. If you look at how to get that $1 million from houses like mine, my tax bill times 143 houses would create that same $1 million, but there are 9,700 houses in Amherst. So it's a pretty similar statistic, 1.47%. I would just say, you would be my hero, Archipelago, if you were building these as dorms on campus and then raise the pilot, the payment in lieu of taxes on campus, and not make such drastic changes downtown. There are clearly many people in town, many who have signed the moratorium petition, that just find, whether you call them dorms or not, but you're saying in this phone call tonight that they are definitively meant for students. And I just also want to say, I appreciate the comments of some of the planning board members supporting more retail. When I see the tiny storefront on the narrowest part of that building, it kind of reminds me when you say you buy lemonade and it says 5% real lemon juice. When you're talking about the definition of a mixed-use building and how little public-facing business a building needs to be considered a mixed-use building, it's really kind of a joke to give that tiny little space towards retail and then even create public space by denting that in. And I really feel like Archipelago, who has made their living in Amherst, is really not paying serious enough attention to the displeasure that a lot of people feel, and that their downtown that they want to live and use in is basically being eradicated by what functionally are private dorms. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ira. And Jennifer Taub.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi. I'm
Thank-
Jennifer Taub at 259 Lincoln Avenue. So other people have spoken about the buildings, and I just wanted to respond to some of the context that Mr. Wilson set up in terms of the need for more housing. I know I sound like a broken record, but just so it's kind of part of the record for the meeting. Mr. Wilson had stated that there's huge growth in Massachusetts. And I think it's fair to say that growth is in the Boston metropolitan area and not in Amherst. And actually the Donahue Institute at UMass, which is headed by our town council president, said that growth in the Pioneer Valley in the 25-year period from 2010 to 2035 is a total of 6.5%. That's not a year, but that is the total for the 25-year period. And the population director at Donahue called this, quote, okay growth, unquote. So we're not having a population surge in Amherst. And then in last year in 2020, in an interview with Boston.com, Marty Meehan, who's president of the entire UMass system, discussed the demographic cliff that's coming. And he said, quote, the number of college-age students will drop almost 15% in 5 years, unquote. And he taught of the need for right sizing in the future because there will be much fewer students. And just today in the New York Times, they actually said 2020 had the lowest birth rate of any year since like 1970. So I don't think Amherst may be in need of a certain kind of housing, but I don't think it's in dire need of more of these dormitory style student complexes. And in terms of parking, Mr. Wilson mentioned, compared Amherst to Durham, North Carolina and Berkeley and said, they all struggle with parking. But Durham has a population of 270,000. So I'm sure it has a much more robust public transportation system than Amherst. Berkeley has a population of 121,000 and part of the San Francisco metropolitan area with its extensive BART and, extensive public transportation system. And I would, think it's probably fair to say that Durham and Berkeley probably have more essential services downtown to serve the population that lives there, like grocery stores, just for starters. So, and I'm also concerned because Archipelago, I don't believe any longer owns One East Pleasant and Kendrick Place. So I feel like when we fall off the demographic cliff, Archipelago will probably not be left holding the bag, but Amherst will. And I guess one other point of clarification is in a newsletter to his District 3 constituents this past weekend, George Marshall wrote down what each of 6 buildings were contributing in tax dollars, and 6 buildings, not 3, contribute $1.2 million a year in tax revenue. And that's from George Ryan. Okay, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Kyle, I think I'd like to hear from you on some of that, because I know we were chatting during the site visit with regard to what the need is. And I know like UMass provides 60% of housing for its student population. And I think the average state university across the country only provides 30%. So, UMass is doing a lot, but UMass is growing, and to UMass's credit, and I would think, that's good for Amherst too, right? And you had mentioned the graduate student population being much higher than I had realized. So maybe you go over that one more time and from what, some of the comments you've heard.
Sure. Well, obviously, Dave and I don't believe there's a cliff. Otherwise, we wouldn't be taking all the risks that we're taking. I think some of the folks have misrepresented what we've said on here so far. I think that, as we said, that the tenants that will come through our buildings are the same tenants that go through the other 5,000 rental properties in Amherst. So 53% of all the housing stock in Amherst is rental. Though that demographic is here, will remain here, will grow over time. And does that number become 60%? We don't know. And where does that demographic live? And I think that's what we're discussing. So I think that there, obviously UMass does house a lot of people on campus. I think that the ability for the university to build more housing is obviously limited, as we've seen with the P3 that's taken a number of years to get where it's going to be, and will provide 600 beds, I think, total. And I think that for as long as people say there's no issue, no issue, no issue, it just provides for cover for no action. And I think no action is the worst thing that we could take right now. I think that as people have said, you know, have said we don't have a housing issue, well then, you know, the percentage, the number of housing rental units has not gone down. So I think that obviously people can have different opinions on whether they think that the flagship campus in the state of the United States, that's #1 in education, #1 in innovation, #1 in life science, if there are some people that think that entity is going to atrophy, then we can have a difference of opinion. We obviously don't think that's going to be the case. We think the university is doing an incredible job on all fronts. It's top 25 in the country now. It's got excellent leadership. It's got the Institute for Advanced Life Sciences that has helped us through COVID here locally. It's the majority of people here in town are directly affiliated with it, and we're very fortunate that it's here. So we look forward to the university continuing to thrive and get better as it has done. And I think that the sooner we could stop imagining that the housing demand in Amherst is going down, the sooner we could start coming up with solutions.
So is it true that Archipelago has divested of the Kendrick Place?
Archipelago has never owned these projects. Archipelago is the development entity. Each one of these projects is a special purpose entity as it remains today.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you have a handle like on the vacancy rate of your existing buildings? Is it something 5-10% or?
Well, obviously COVID changed that for anybody who owns rental property in Amherst. But it is vacancy is not an issue. If you can ask anybody who owns a rental property in Amherst right now, vacancy is not a concern that we have.
Yeah, and I sense that just from
it's very low, Jack.
Yeah, so I sense that from just the real estate market with, you know, the housing sale prices, whatever. It just it shouts.
Just historically, every study that has been done in Amherst has talked about vacancy, and it's always been extremely low.
Yeah, thank you. Next we have Kitty. State your name and address, please.
Hi, Kitty.
Okay, hi. Janet, I love the way you greet people. It's very nice. My name is Kitty Axelson Berry, and I live at 89 Stony Hill Road in Echo Hill South, which is a planned urban residential development. So first of all, I'm kind of cautiously happy to see several of you members of the planning board supporting what I see as more of a concern about public space, more of a concern about safety for pedestrians on sidewalks, all the things that I'm concerned about. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank you. Less architecture that's so massive. So, okay, I might repeat myself or repeat other people, and I don't know so much about planning, but it seems to me that the area along the cemetery must be some kind of a historic treasure. I mean, it should be if it isn't. And wouldn't it be possible to, instead of narrowing the street there and I guess keeping it like 5 feet wide, something like that, which seems to me to be a fire hazard. But couldn't the walk along the cemetery be promoted as something of interest, of value, of aesthetic, you know, attraction. So I'm just wondering about whether it would be possible for the design to include making the cemetery walk a feature instead of something that's like you can only see from the 4th floor where the community room is or something like that. Because also that little view corridor looks pretty narrow and it's helpful, but not enough in my opinion. And also I'm wondering whether that little corridor, the view corridor to the cemetery is public space and how the public would be invited to walk down it if it is public space. I mean, I don't even know what public space means at this point. Because if the public doesn't feel welcome to it, how is it really public? That's a question. Okay, moving on. Housing crisis. I think that the housing crisis here is much more for family housing, for workforce housing, for low and moderate income housing, and not so much for students. I wish there were more duplexes, more owner occupied rentals, more triplexes, I guess it's called, and more, you know, small, inexpensive, not so expensive condos for a variety of ages, or even more apartments that would be suitable for a variety of ages, including older people who, there was an article that economist Jerry Friedman wrote in the Amherst Indy last week about how students and old people like me are a good bet for a town because we don't cost so much because we don't have kids in the schools, and we pay property taxes or rent, which creates property taxes, of course. So I really think it would be really nice if places like if Archipelago didn't only cater to students, and because I looked up their websites and it says student housing for every one of these developments. It's like student housing. It's right there in the publicity, or maybe it was for Harrison, the owner, or Innovative Living, the rental, whatever. I think that whether it's the town or the planning board, has the right to insist upon bigger setbacks on all sides, every side. And that I don't understand why the town wouldn't do that. I don't understand. I mean, I hope the town would insist on bigger setbacks, not reducing the setbacks from 10 feet to 5 feet, from 20 feet to 5 feet. It's like, why not insist on like more setbacks, not less, where you can't even walk. And finally, well, not finally, but so stop me if I'm over my time, please.
I didn't put my timer on, but I'm sure you're over, but go ahead with your last point there.
Okay. I completely disagree with Kyle Wilson's sentiment that essentially people should go to the mall or order on the internet and not bother coming into Amherst unless they can walk. And I know so many people, because I lived for over 40 years in North Leverett. I know so many people from Leverett, Pelham, Shutesbury, who used to come to Amherst. And when I talk to them, they say they just don't come here anymore, but they would like to come here to do shopping, not just go to restaurants and coffee shops. Now they go to Greenfield, or they go all the way out of their way to Northampton. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Hey, from that comment, I think just Chris, I think the cemetery should be clarified. There's no walkway or driveway back there. Maybe you can clean that up with the interaction of the cemetery.
Do you want me to answer that?
Yes.
So the cemetery is a public space, and people are invited to come into the cemetery from two places. One is next to the toy box and the other one is on Triangle Street. So there's plenty of opportunity for people to walk around the cemetery. The space between the cemetery and this building is going to be a slope. And at the bottom of the slope, it's going to be grassy, and it's going to be.
And it's currently a slope. It's not right.
That's right.
It's not even a walkway currently.
It's probably going to be wet and grassy, yeah. And it doesn't seem like an inviting place to go. It seems much more inviting to be up on top in the cemetery, where you can see everything that's to be seen instead of being kind of down in a hole that's wet, that's, you know, right next to a building.
Yeah,
So
like-
I don't think that it's realistic to promote a public access along that strip when people could go and walk in the cemetery. So
But-
that's my comment.
Yeah, but there is, the point is, like, there is no public access back there anyway, right now. And actually, to view the mural on 1 East Pleasant Street, you can't see it if you're right next to the building. It's meant to be viewed from the
It's
cemetery.
meant to be viewed from the
Yeah,
cemetery. That's right.
so, okay. All right, so we have one more, and then obviously there's a lot more, but I think we have some other little small projects to clean up. So we'll continue this hearing, but Janet Keller, state your name and address, please.
Hi, Janet. Janet, can you
Hi,
mute?
hi, everybody.
There you go.
I would like Janet Keller, Pulpit Hill Road, 120 Pulpit Hill Road. And I would like to appreciate the fullness and thoughtfulness of the planning board for so many aspects of this project that you discussed tonight. And then I would like to make an ask for the next meeting for the details of the stormwater plans for this development. If you could request that those be discussed in detail enough to ensure us that a 100-year storm would be handled properly and not cause any danger to outside of the site. And then I would like, that triggered also an idea for me about that 20 feet of slope behind the building, between the building and the cemetery. And should that be retained as part of the stormwater handling system? So thank you for this opportunity. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Janet. Yeah, so I know you have a stormwater report prepared that we can catch, the next meeting. At this point, Chris, do we need to vote for the continuation or?
Mhm. Chris, you're muted.
One of the planning board members needs to make a motion to continue this public hearing for all three of the cases, the 2 site plan review cases and the special permit case. And I would recommend continuing it to June 2nd at 7:30.
Okay. So, who wants to make it? Andrew?
So moved, as Chris has suggested.
Okay, so we're talking about SPR 2021-07, SPP 2021-02, and then SPR 2021-09, continued to June, what?
June
What date?
2nd, June. my
June
meeting-
2nd,
no,
okay.
June 2nd at 7:30.
Okay. And there's a second somewhere.
Second.
Okay, Janet, and any discussion? Do roll call here. Maria,
Yes, approved.
Andrew,
Aye.
Doug,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Johanna,
Aye.
and myself as an aye. So that's unanimous. And we'll see you. Thank you, Kyle. And
Thank you.
David, and we look forward to seeing you
Kyle.
June 2nd.
Thank you very much.
Take
Bye.
care.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And so next, this is we're kind of like 9:30. We would like to wrap up. Fortunately, we did the Kendrick Park Playground, old business. Topics not reasonably anticipated 48 hours part of the meeting? Is there anything? Oh, great. All right. And new business
No new business.
topics, not anticipated. Okay, great. Form A subdivision applications.
We have one, and Pam can show the plan. I think she's got 2 plans. Oh, look at that. That's wonderful.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, you've got
Hold
the,
on. I'm
you've got more.
sharing the wrong thing. Hold on.
So I'll just start off and tell you that it's an A&R that you've seen before. It's property at the corner of Harkness Road and Belchertown Road. About a year ago, you looked at this property previously, and the configuration of the property as a result of the previous A&R was 2 lots at the corner, which Pam can show you. They have that one and that one. Yep. So those aren't changing at all. And then there was 1 large lot, which I think was called Lot 1, and it was a big lot with that red line. Yep. So that was 1 lot. And then there was this little corner lot here. So now the landowner, and just to let you know, the areas closer to the closer to Harkness Road, those 2 lots that are closer to the corner are in the RN zoning district. The other 3 lots are a lot of their lot areas in the RLD district. And so the RLD lots are required to have at least 2 acres or 80,000 square feet of lot area, and a building circle of 200 feet. Now, the house, there's an existing house that's close to Belchertown Road. That is, Pam, if Pam moves her cursor over to.
I'm sorry, which lot did you say?
That lot that you're pointing to right now, there's an existing house there. And that house, most of that house is in the RN zone. So it's allowed to have a building circle of 120 feet, whereas the lots where the buildings will go in the RLD are required to have a building circle of 200 feet, which they do. So these lots are configured, the new version of these lots are configured properly. Each one has over 80,000 square feet. Each one has more than 200 feet of frontage, and each one has a building circle of 200 feet, except for that one that has the house in it already. So we're asking you to, and I should say, the new lot lines are the, see the north, I'll have to orient myself here. North is to the right. So on the western side of lot 5, there's a new lot line that's being drawn. Maybe Pam can show that. Yes, that's the new lot line. And if she can drag her cursor over, yeah, that's the new lot line too. So those are the new lot lines. Essentially what they're doing is they're creating a new lot 5. They're making lot 4 a little smaller, and they're making lot 1 smaller from the previous iteration that you saw a few months ago. So what you are being asked to do is to authorize the chair of the planning board to sign this plan, making a statement that this plan, this configuration of lots, does not require going through the subdivision process. In other words, there's no road here. You're not creating a new road with lots off the road. You're creating lots that are on an existing road. So the statement is that this is approval not required. Subdivision approval is not required. So if you would authorize Jack to sign that plan, that would be helpful.
Thank you.
Chris, could I ask a question? Or Jack? So I'm a little, so I was beginning to wonder, like, why isn't this a subdivision? But that explains it. Did you say that in the RO it has to be two acres?
Yes.
And so I can barely read this, but it looks like lot 5 and 4 are not 2.
Well, it has to be 80,000 square feet, which is almost 2 acres. An acre is 43,560. So if you multiply that by 2, you get 86 something. But the zoning bylaw actually requires 80,000 square feet per lot in the LD zoning district. So these lots do meet that 80,000 square feet requirement.
Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't clear about that.
Yeah, I can hardly see that, but okay, that makes sense to me. Okay, thank you.
Doug, you have a question?
No, I'd like to move that we allow the chair to declare that this is not required subdivision approval.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Janet. Any discussion? I see no hands raised. I'll do a roll call. Maria?
Approved. I don't think we have to vote on it.
You don't really need to vote. You can just sort of do it by consensus unless someone objects.
Might be quicker to do. No, all right.
Might be quicker
Any
to do it.
objections?
We started, so we should finish.
Okay, I see no objections. Let's roll. Upcoming ZBA applications.
Oh, I'm very sorry. No, I have nothing new to report tonight.
And upcoming SPP, SPR, SUB applications.
I think I told you about this one before, but the Emily Dickinson Museum is putting in a generator and some other mechanical equipment. And so they're doing some work behind the existing garage, and I'll be bringing that to you on June 2nd.
Very good. Planning Board Committee and Liaison reports. I think I'm just gonna, with regard to the planning, Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, I did forward you, Chris, there's a housing symposium tomorrow, midday. If you could distribute that email, looks interesting.
Oh.
Yep.
You remember that? Okay.
Yep.
And I'll let other people go. Maybe I'll remember what was discussed in the last meeting. So it was an executive meeting. So it was just more logistical. But so the CPA committee, Andrew?
Thanks, Jack. Yeah, we met last week and we finalized the language for the Amherst Community Preservation Plan. So this basically has information, kind of an intro to what CPA is, as well as providing some detailed information on how you can apply. That's hopefully going to be loaded this week, but maybe next week. And that essentially wraps up. I think we may still have like one other, not technically meeting, but some opportunity to get together, but we're essentially wrapped for this year.
Very good. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks.
Doug, Ag Commission.
Nothing to report. We have not met.
Okay. And Design Review Board, Tom, you spoke a little bit earlier.
Yeah, we had a conversation obviously about the sign in Kendrick Park. We also had a conversation to approve signage for Aspen Heights, which is in the storefront near Bueno, across from Town Hall. It's a new storefront there as their kind of retail or their apartment sales location, and that's 40 Main Street, so it's right downtown. And they just have some vinyl graphics in the storefront that needed to be approved, so those were approved. And then we have a meeting on Monday, May 10th, 5 to 7, with the Archipelago group regarding the materials we just reviewed here.
Great, thank you. And then the CRC, Chris, I remember there's some.
So the CRC reviewed a number of things with planning staff and Rob Mora. We went over the mixed use building definition and standards, and I think we're going to be bringing that to the planning board on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday. We also talked about apartments, and Maureen Pollock is working on a definition and some standards for apartments. So we'll be bringing that to you as well. We talked to them about the BL zoning district, and that still needs a lot of work. So Nate is continuing to work on that. And I think ADUs, accessory dwelling units, is moving on to be presented to the town council for a referral back to the planning board and the CRC. So that's moving ahead. We didn't really talk to CRC about that. So next week, this coming week, the CRC is going to be meeting about the housing policy that's being proposed. They're also going to be looking at the work that Maureen has done on apartments, and they're going to be looking at the demo delay bylaw, which is pretty far on its way to being done. And then we'll be bringing zoning amendments to you all on Wednesday. So we're working pretty hard on those and hoping to move them ahead. And as I said before, the inclusionary zoning bylaw and the moratorium are going to, I didn't mention the moratorium, but both inclusionary zoning and the moratorium are going to have public hearings on May 19th, the planning board and the CRC. So you'll get an opportunity to talk about that at that time.
Very good. Report of the chair. I think I don't really have anything. And report of staff.
I don't have anything either, not at this time.
Okay. So we are meeting next.
Next Wednesday at 6:30 to talk about zoning.
Okay.
And I
All
think
right.
everybody said they could come.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah, we kind of fit that in recently anyway. So, hey, happy Cinco de Mayo to everyone.
Cinco de Mayo.
We survived another festive planning board day. So
We are adjourned. It's 9:45. Just want you to know.
all righty. All right.
Thank you.
Take care. All right. See ya.
Bye.